You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
We'll call this meeting of the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, March 21, 2024. I have 7:02 p.m. We'll introduce members of the commission and staff. Commission member Joe Chadwick. Joe, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Thank you, Joe. Fred Russo. Fred, are you here?
Fred Russo is present.
Marcy Pelusi. Marcy, are you here?
Marcy's here.
Thank you, Marcy. Massimo Liguri. Massimo, are you here?
Massimo Liguri is here.
Thank you, Massimo. And Sharon Hutner. Sharon, are you here?
Sharon Hutner is here.
Thank you, Sharon. And I believe absent is Joe Vayuso, is not going to be with us this evening. Our staff this evening is our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, are you here?
I am here.
And our assistant planner, Evan Brining. Evan, you're here? Evan raised his hand.
Here.
And our clerk, recording secretary in cloud somewhere is Michelle Martin. I am Chuck Anders, chair. At this point, I'll ask our secretary, Fred Russo, to read the notice of public hearing.
Legal notice, Town of Branford. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, March 21st, 2024 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the Commission's meetings agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Application number 24-2.1, special exception for an auto body repair shop located at 17 North Main Street, Don Iamuno, applicant and owner. Application number 24-2.4, PDD master plan located at 329 East Main Street, aka 325 East Main Street, CP Branford LLC, in care of John Nuff, applicant, Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, aka Twist Realty Company Incorporated, owner. Application number 24-2.6, subdivision located at 326 East Main Street, aka 325 East Main Street, CP Branford LLC, in care of John Nuff, applicant, Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, aka Twist Realty Company Incorporated, owner. Application number 24-2.7, special exception for grading, section 6.8, located at 325 East Main Street, aka 325 East Main Street, CP Branford LLC, in care of John Nuff, applicant, Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, aka Twist Realty Company Incorporated, owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department at 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut, 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to planning and zoning at branford-ct.gov. Branford Planning and Zoning Commission, C. Andres, chairperson.
Second, Chair. Thank you, Fred. We'll follow a normal format for public hearings. That is, the applicant goes first, makes his presentation, including any presentations by the applicant, its consultants, or its team. After we're done with that, we turn it over to the commission and staff. We typically hear a summary of a staff report from the commission staff, and then we open up for questions and comments by commission members. At that point, we open up for public comment. And I'm going to ask Evan to review with everyone the process for participating as a member of the public. Basically ask that you state your name and address for the record, and that you state your name after you speak, make your comments. After the public comment, we allow the applicant to respond to any of the public comment and open it up to further questions and comments by staff. We may or may not conclude the public hearing depending on how it goes. It's certainly not unusual to have a public hearing extend over one or more meetings. And with that, I'll ask Evan to review with us the process for public participation. Evan?
Sure. When prompted, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, there's a button at the bottom of your screen that's labeled raise hand. Please select this. You can also type your comments into the chat. If you're dialing in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And again, we ask everyone, please state their name at the beginning of their comment or question.
Thank you, Evan. In terms of just typing comments in, it's best if you say them on the record so that we make sure that they're in the record. So we prefer that you actually state them. We're making a video of this, so they are actually on the record. So thank you for that. And with that, we'll follow our agenda. We're following a normal agenda item. The first matter is a continuation of a public hearing. This is Branford Real Estate LLC, care of Aaron Pravala, applicant and owner. This is 548 and 558 West Main Street, special exception for a used car dealership. And this was an application that I think we opened back in January. We had a public hearing on it. There were some additional comments from staff, and I think the applicant was going to at least discuss or comment with a landscape architect. So we'll turn that over to the applicant at this point to bring us up to date on where this is.
Okay. This is Dave Nafis, licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Nafis and Young Engineers, 1355 Middletown Avenue in Northford. Over the past couple weeks, we had, well, maybe I can just refresh a little bit of what's going on. We have the site with the existing building here. This is the building is going to remain. It's going to become the auto repair shop. This existing house is going to be raised right here. It's going to be gone, and it's going to become part of what will now be the parking area for the cars that are required for the site. And then we're going to have extra parking in this area for what they consider car storage for cars to be sold. What we've done from last time, there was a comment about drainage. So what we did is we've added some more infiltrators in the area right here. And what's going to happen is the roof leaders are going to feed down into the infiltration system. There'll be an overflow at the roof leader in this area. What this will do is within the site boundaries, this will keep our peak runoff rates at pre-existing conditions. There is a slight, because we have a slight increase of impervious on site where that's what the infiltration system is. In addition to that, the area outside that's still part of the project was not included in that. And what we've done in this area is we've actually reduced it. So we have a net reduction of impervious surface of 2,100 square feet. So this was paved from pretty much from here all the way across with either gravel or bituminous. And you can see now we've added a lot of grass space in between. Over the last 2 weeks, we've met with the landscape architect, Mr. Lawrence Appleton, and he basically gave us what he deemed we should do on the site. Let me see if I can. So what he's looking for us to do is we've pulled the fence in on this side. There's a screen fence here, and we're removing some asphalt. We're going to mulch the area in the back here. This area will become mulch bed. These are the existing large trees along the back line. So what he suggested we do too is pull this fence up to here. We're going to put a retaining wall in, so we don't have to do there'll be just some minor grading just to fill in here, but there won't be any really grading in the back of this area. So we should be able to preserve all these trees. We've also added there's a small swale in this area with these trees that he said we put the swale in. Any sheet runoff in the parking lot will go here. And all these trees in this area will absorb that extra water in that area before it goes downhill which is large wetland down here. where we show the silt fence here is basically where the top of the slope is. From here, then it really starts to drop off. So we're gonna try to catch everything here where it's a little flatter before it has a chance to run off and go down the hill. And you can see we've added, what he suggests, we added a couple trees along the front that are up a little higher, so it allows visibility as people drive by. It'll add some screening for that, but it won't totally block the site, so people can see the cars that are parked out in the storage area out in front. And you can see we added a couple little trees around the whole site. Type of trees is on the bottom of the sheet down there. You can go through each one of them. I'm not necessarily a big tree guy, so I can't give you all the ins and outs of what does what, but I do know that the ones over here, he said, were very good at absorbing water. And this light green patch over here is a planter box that will be set with a bunch of plantings in here too to screen off where even though it's a house, but it's still in the business zone, so that's going to be put in. Other than that, that's pretty much the changes we've made over the last couple weeks.
Okay, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Nafis. Anything else?
From our end, that's pretty much it.
Okay. We'll turn this over to Evan. Evan, I think you've been reviewing this application. Do you have comments on this? Have you had a chance to review these, or where are we?
I did not have the opportunity to revise my staff report. Received the plans yesterday. I believe there was also a stormwater report given to the town engineer. So he is yet to make a review or provide any comment. So, I'd like to continue to the next meeting, and so I can prepare a response to the submitted plans.
Thank you. Thank you, Evan.
I would like to hear what the commission thinks. We had a discussion at the last meeting about the landscaping plan, so I'd like to see if these measures taken are something they're comfortable with.
Thank you, Evan. Let's open up for questions and comments and by commission members. Commission members have any comments? Again, it sounds like engineering hasn't reviewed the engineering, the drainage report, and Evan really hasn't gone. This just came in, but I know we did discuss the landscaping issue last time. So, and we see Mr. Nafis presented. I guess he's spoken with Mr. Appleton and is conveying these recommendations. So, questions or comments from commissioners?
Dave Naves, I could just add one thing. Mr. Appleton actually drew these out. We just added them to our plans. So this was his actual layout.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Naves. Questions, comments from commission members?
Hi, could you just zoom in on the plant list again, please? It's Marcy. Thank you. It looks much better.
Thank you, Marcy. Any other comments, Marcy? Any other thoughts or that you'd like to make at this time?
Other than my dog barking in the background. No, that looks like he's got some natives in there. He's got some, good plants. The dogwood and the two dogwoods will do well in the swale. So, I trust his years of experience. So, and I'm happy to see that they're protecting the trees with the retaining wall. I think that's much improved.
Check in to share. Thank you, Marcy. Other comments from commission members?
Yes. Contrary to my flip response, we discussed this previously. I think the scheme has benefited greatly from probably not much effort on the part of the landscape architect, and the overall benefit, I think, will far outweigh any expenditure to provide it.
Checking in to share. Thank you, Joe. Other comments from commission members? Sharon?
Sharon Hudner here. I would like to agree with everybody, and I think this just goes to show you how important it is to have a landscape architect look at our plans and make sure that they do have adequate landscaping. So I would like to thank the applicant for moving forward and doing that.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Sharon. Other comments from commission members?
Fred Russo.
Fred?
I just want to say I think that this plan is significantly better than the one that was previously proposed, and I do agree with all the other commissioners who feel that with a little bit more expertise to the plan, it's going to enhance the property and probably enhance his business. It's going to be more appealing. It'll have better curb appeal. Just seeing what I see here now, so I'm happy to see that they took, I think, all of our advice and which was go back to the drawing table and come back with something better than what you had. And I think they've done that. So I'm happy with what I see.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Fred. Any other questions or comments from any members of commission or staff? Evan, let me just ask you, are there other questions that you had? I know there were a number of concerns besides the landscaping, or there were some concerns. Is there any questions that you had that you wanted to call out?
I still have a number of items from my previous staff report. I'll have to, skim through them and take a look. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but one thing I didn't see on the grade was this proposed swale. Was that on the grading plan, Dave?
I do not know. I have to take let me see. It's gonna be very small. It's just gonna be, so it may not have.
Okay.
If it it's like right in this area, and it's such a small area that it doesn't, I don't know if would even show up. Mr. Appleton asked us just to put a small swale, catch water, and then the whatever trees we plant along there can absorb a lot of that water before it has a chance to run down the hill and
Gotcha.
into the wetlands.
And what's the highest the wall will be?
We've actually reduced the height of the wall a little bit in this area where we've cut the wall here, and the wall's going to get cut here and match. So this will be a little higher, and you come around, then it'll be lower. So the total height of the wall, I think, is about 2 to 2.5 feet at the maximum height in the back.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson, Chair. Any other questions, comments from commission members before we open it up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open up in the public. Does any member of the public wish to comment? And your member, Evan, told you how to do that.
Just right down to the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button. If you'd like to make a comment or ask any questions, please select that button. Yes, looks like Perry Maresca would like to.
Mr. Maresca. Whoops, looks like you're muted, Perry.
I just asked him to unmute, hopefully.
Okay.
There you are.
Perry Maresca, Economic and Business Development Manager in town of Branford. I do think that this is a good proposal, especially now that the landscape architect has put in the most recent plans. The fact that they're eliminating some of the paved area, giving more of a buffer from Route 1 into the facility is great. And I just think that it's a huge improvement to what the property looks like right now. So I congratulate the owners of the property for making this effort, and wish the best, and hope that planning and zoning can find the way to approve this. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Ms. Maresca. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Evan, you see anyone?
Is it Jackie Casey? I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Jackie, do you see a prompt in the middle of your screen asking you to unmute?
There, she's okay. Well, oh, no. I'm gonna try making her a co-host, see if that helps, maybe.
Sure.
There you are. Great.
I'm
Okay.
so sorry. I have trouble with these things. So, as far as I can tell, this area is across from where you have the Harley Davidson or the motorcycle place, right? It's that area across the street, across Route 1. That's that part of West Main Street.
Approximately, yes.
Do you know where Jefferson Road is? It's across from that intersection.
Okay. All right. So, is the light going to be able to do? I mean, are you guys going to be able to get the state to change the lighting system so you can get in and out of this business? How does this affect the traffic flow? And I do see that you've remediated part of the problem with the water runoff, and you don't want the water running off into the wetlands. Businesses like this can create a lot of unsavory things that can go into the water. But again, I live on the East Haven side of the hill, and I go to Guilford at least 3 days a week. So trying to get up and over the hill in the morning and the afternoon can be very scary. And if we're going to put another business, and I love bringing business into town, I think it's great. But how do we intend to deal with this? Is the light that is already at Jefferson Road going to be able to handle that? Or is this going to be one of those things where you're crossing two lanes of traffic basically on your own?
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Ms. Casey. I'm going to ask Mr. Nafis to address that, and perhaps our staff can address that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Nafis, do you have any comments regarding
that? Leaving our site, it's a one-way only, a right-hand turn only, so you can't take a left-hand turn and cross over the traffic. Coming into the site, it's may not be the best, but once we get your approval, the state of Connecticut's going to have to make their approval also on this, so they may have recommendations or along those lines. And what I can understand, I think there's some sort of master plan for that intersection coming up because they requested that we put sidewalks in, I think, because they're going to add sidewalks and stuff in the area. So I think there's something more going on in this area than we know about. And they're asking us to kind of do our piece to help them out a little bit.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Nafis. Harry or Evan, do you have any comments?
No, I think Mr. Nib's is correct. It has to go to State of Connecticut DOT after this. I'm sure they'll take a lot of those issues into consideration. And yeah, like you said, there's some sidewalk improvements going in. I don't know if those necessarily apply to any changes to the intersection or the streetlights, but it will go to the state.
Chuck Anderson, thank you. And yes, it is Route 1 is a state road. It's not a town road, so the state sort of has jurisdiction over it, both in terms of the lights and the other thing is there has been an existing business. It's not a wholly new curb cut. It's not like it's been undeveloped land. So it is something that is existing there now. At least it has been. It's been unused for a bit. So
I add something else also.
Sure, Mr.
Nafis again. You got to understand the nature of the business too. This business is not going to be a like a Jiffy Lube type place. This is going to be kind of a used car lot, and the repair is going to be done basically on the cars that have been bought and sold from the facility. So it's not going to be like a Jiffy Lube where you're going to have cars coming in and out all day long. It's going to be kind of it's from a traffic and impact is to be very low as far as generations from to and from the site. And like I said, leaving the site, you can only take a right-hand turn out there. We're going to limit it to no left-hand turn. So you have no choice but to leave the site from the right. I don't know if the owner's here. He may be able to, Ari, I don't know if you want to chime in and kind of this out.
Sure, absolutely. Ari Pravala, the applicant owner. In my Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, to continue with Dave's comments, yes, the nature of the business itself, it's the one that brings the least traffic if you compare it to any other businesses. The other fact is that these are two properties, right? There was still is an existing house, which I'll tear down, so that house will not bring any more traffic anymore. We're joining the two properties into one property, so that single property will bring whatever traffic the business calls for. My experience for years dealing with this type of businesses, we're truly looking for that one customer to come in. So one customer buying a car a day would put me, above average, as far as what I'm expecting out of this business, which would bring less traffic than a residential home. So I'm actually doing the state highway a favor as far as bringing traffic down from what it was existing two properties.
Well, because I live near Sound Auto, which is also a resale of automobiles. And one of the problems that we have is when the trucks come in carrying the cars, they can't go into the lot because they can't fit. So they end up literally offloading on Route 1. They take a whole lane out.
Good question. Absolutely. Sound Auto, very reputable car dealership, has been around for a while. It's a larger dealership, probably twice or three times the size from the one that I'm going to operate. My dealership is more of a smaller size, boutique, small neighborhood dealership. So I would, by that, cause less traffic. The cars that I'm bringing in are not being brought by truck. We actually drive them in from, brand new dealer trade-ins or auctions. The way my lot is, it has a enter and exit. Even if I would bring a smaller truck, actually that truck could drive in, unload the cars, and continue without causing any stoppage on Route 1. But yeah, I mean, we're looking at selling one car a day would be fulfilling my business plan at 150%. So I actually just need to bring one car. We drive them in. We get them at the dealerships, auctions. The drive-in back is actually testing our cars. We do get a half-day warranty usually from our auctions. And my car provider is the local auction here in Connecticut. My staff brings them in. So there will be no traffic, no stoppage, no trucks coming in. Just because I'm a smaller dealer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pavella. Evan, are there other members of the public who wish to comment? You see any other members of the public wish to comment?
I do not see anyone else.
Okay. Mr. Nafis, it sounds like you just recently presented this. It sounds like Evan hasn't had a chance to review it thoroughly, and we still need to hear back from the town engineer. Do you want to keep this open for another meeting, and then we could, in case they have additional questions, and then we could probably take this at the next meeting?
Whatever your pleasure is, it's fine with us.
Okay. Do we have time to continue this, Gary?
Harry, the town planner, I think you need a time extension to the next meeting.
Okay. Is that, does the applicant consent to the time extension to continue the public hearing to our next meeting, which is what? That is
April 4.
April 4. Is that okay? Is this the
yes, this is Attorney Ben Connor for the applicant. We would consent to the extension.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Connor. Okay, so then what we'll do then, to allow the town engineer who's not here and our staff just to review the updates and go through the reports, we'll continue this public hearing to our April 4th meeting. Again, it's also a Zoom meeting, starts at 7 p.m., just like this one. So with that, this matter is continued to our April 4th meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that brings us into item number 2, which is North Main Branford LLC, care of Dan Immuno, applicant owner, 17 North Main Street. That's a special exception for an auto body repair. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that one?
Good evening, Jim Preddy, Crystal Engineering, representing Mr. Immuno. Let me go. I'm going to start with the existing additions plan. So currently, Mr. Immuno is the owner of J&E Auto Body, is at 13 North Main Street. They have recently purchased 17 North Main Street, which is this property here adjacent. It was for many years a welding shop, I believe. In fact, I can show you, on any event, it was a welding shop and there was many junk vehicles in the back, and it was kind of an eyesore for a while. So Mr. Immuno has purchased the property and cleaned it up. This is what the building looked like previously. You could see, this is the J&E Auto Body currently, but this is, you could see some of the, there was a junk bus there. There's J&E Auto Body. This is the welding shop from the other side. They have recently cleaned the building up and reskinned it basically, and replaced doors and windows. And you can see it's a much nicer looking building, very similar to the auto body shop next door, the same stucco feature and stone coursing, and some shingles in the gable ends. We did go to the town center review. They were very happy about the appearance of the building matching the other building. So why we're here is that they want to use the building as, auxiliary space for the auto body shop next door. So we were asked to provide a possible parking and lighting plan. We did have a lighting plan done that was sent in. We show more than enough parking spaces here. Basically, the parking spaces would be more or less stacking spaces for cars that to be, either in process of being fixed or to be fixed. We also have a landscaping plan that Mr. Appleton has helped us prepare. We are providing building plantings along the side here. There is an overhead door in the front, so we're trying to keep this space clear here because although historically the old property had basically crushed stone right out to the curb line, that's obviously DOT's property within the right of way. So we're taking back all the gravel, all the stone that's out in the right of way, and putting in topsoil and grass. We're providing a landscape buffer area along the residential district, which is kind of comes through at an odd shape here. And a couple of we're adding some street trees along the front, street tree in the back. The street tree in the back is kind of pushed inwards a little bit though, because there is an existing billboard here, and we're not trying to lose all the view coming down the street from the billboard. The neighbor, and we are adding planting here, but quite honestly, this neighbor here has a very thick row of arborvitaes along here that's 10 to 12 feet at this end, and then like 8 feet and 6 feet. I think they planted in different phases, but there's a wall of green there currently now. There was a curb cut here historically that I think accessed that front overhead door, but again, we're taking all that crushed stone out. We're going to close that curb cut, so they will need to kind of get in there from that end on site. But basically, that's it. Mr. Immuno's cleaned the site up quite a bit, and is going to continue to clean it up and more or less is a change of use from the welding shop to auto body.
Chuck Candace share. Thank you, Mr. Preddy. Are you merging the lots or no? Or there's going to be remain separate lots?
The lots are not being merged at this time. We're trying to get them to be able to use that building. But we are talking about adding on to the existing shop, and at that point we will have to merge the lots because of the setback requirements with that lot line. So we'll need to get rid of that lot line, and so the next phase would be merging the lots. Adding on at that point, we'll most likely be looking at paving some if not most of this. But right now it's going to stay, crushed stone.
Thank you, Mr. Preddy.
Mr. Imuno is also on here if you have any additional questions that I can't answer.
Thank you, Mr. Preddy. Evan, you prepared the staff report for this one?
I did. I think Mr. Preddy hit a lot of the points that were in my staff report already. They're establishing motor vehicle service at a site in between two adjacent lots that they previously own and operate their business out of. Those are 13 North Main Street and 23 North Main Street. It came to our attention late last week that some work had been done at the site. We received some calls from neighbors and other departments with the town of Branford that some paving had been done and a retaining wall had been built. The applicant's engineer supplied us with a landscaping plan and a new site plan yesterday. So I had recommended in my staff report that we continue to the next meeting. I would still recommend that. I'd just like a chance to look everything over, prepare some conditions of approval, hopefully for our next meeting. They did get a landscape architect to prepare that plan for them. Like Mr. Preddy said, they went before the town center board, who were happy with the changes that they've already made to the building. And they had requested that the landscaping plan be sent to them for comment. So that will give us some time to maybe get some comments from them. They satisfy the off-street parking requirement. It looks like they satisfied some, if not most, of the landscaping plan requirements, particularly the residential buffer. I did not see a drainage or stormwater plan submitted. Would like the applicant to maybe comment on that or prepare that for the next meeting. And yes, staff still recommends continuing and allowing us to prepare some comments based on the plans we received yesterday.
Jim Preddy again, if I can't, though, just that one, the stormwater comment. So we're not actually increasing any impervious surface here. And we're not paving yet. So if we're going to continue this, I will review it with the town engineer. If he wants us to add something now, we will, but we're probably better off waiting until the next phase. But I'll discuss it and get some comments from them.
Sounds good.
Chuck Industry. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Ms. Preddy. Questions, comments from commission members before we open up to the public? Hearing none, does any member of the public? Oh, excuse me, Massimo.
I'd like to make a comment. The improvement over there, I go by there quite often, was pretty dramatic. It looked like a junkyard over there, really downgraded that whole area. And when I drove by and seen what they did to that spot and how they cleaned it up, it was pretty significant. And I'm glad somebody cleaned it up. It looks really good. That's my only comment.
Great. Check in, share. Thank you, Massimo. Other comments from commission members? Harry, did you got some?
Not a commission member. Harry's the town planner, but if Jim, could you put the plan up, the landscaping plan up one more time? I just have a question. It looks like the landscaping proposed along North Main Street is in the right of way. Is that correct?
Uh, sorry, Jim Preddy, the street trees, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the street trees, and there's some shrubs there too. I can't see it. It's not. It's
Um,
kind of
yeah.
small
So
scale.
yeah,
My
so we are proposing some street trees right up against the property line, and then the landscaping on the north side will wrap around the front somewhat. But again,
yeah.
we're trying to keep this area open because they'll have to get in and out, and then the other thing would be to provide access to across to the other site without having to go on to Route 1. They're losing a curb cut here, so.
Yeah, I understand. We'll have to. You're at the whim of DOT when you put them in. Apparent, is my understanding. Anyway, they can take them down if they need to. Not that they're probably going to, but do you get the permission to put them in there? I would think you do.
It'll have to get reviewed by them at some point.
All right. Well, we can look at that before the next meeting.
Jim, how tall is the retaining wall in the back?
It is nowhere higher than 3 feet. We did, after we heard that it went in, I actually sent my survey crew out there and shot it, and it's 2.8 feet here, 2.8 feet in the middle, and it goes down to just over like 16 inches at the end. So it's nowhere higher than 3 feet.
Thanks.
Any other comments from commission members or staff before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open up the public. Any member of the public wish to comment? Looks like I see one raised hand.
Yeah, looks like somebody calling in. You could please unmute yourself and state your name. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Maureen Gherkin, and I come from 43 Wilford Avenue, Branford, and my husband and I own 25 North Main Street. I received a letter that Mr. Amuno wanted special exception for number 17, which he bought in 2022. He bought 13 North Main Street in 2012 and 23 North Main Street 2017. I'm asking the commission to look at with pause and concern regarding the entire project. I understand that it does look better in certain areas, but I wish that the whole entire site plan was one plan so that it's not chopped up. I have concerns with driveways. I know the town did a study years ago about North Main Street and how driveways and the angles of the driveways they recommended to be if special exceptions were given to certain site plans. I have concern with how many cars are going to be on the property and how they're going to be positioned on the property. I have concerns for parking. I have concerns for sidewalk. I have concerns for landscaping. I have concerns that the cart went before the horse here, that work was done and certain things were not approved. For instance, detailing. Detailing is being done at 23 North Main Street at one of the bays, the 4 bays in the back. And they pull out the sprayer, and I wonder what protection they're doing environmentally, but also the water goes all over the place, and I didn't know that 23 North Main Street had any special exception ever given because being the neighbor, I never got any information regarding that. There's 2 driveways there. The one driveway has been parked with tandem parking with cars that are all ruined, and they just sit there. There's no direction of the parking in the back of 23 North Main Street. An emergency vehicle could not get in to most of the spaces that you have coming from 13 down to 23 North Main Street. And we already learned a lesson about emergency equipment being able to get through. I have concerns with the usage of 23 North Main Street. It was when Mr. Yucko owned it, he passed away, Ken. It was a 2-bedroom, living room, bathroom upstairs, and from what I have been told, it is now a multifamily. I have concerns with that too because that was not permitted. So I'm asking for the town to look at the entire plan. I'm not looking to kibosh anything, but I want Harry Smith and Evan and engineering to look at everything regarding drainage, regarding landscaping, regarding driveways, regarding the whole entire thing instead of picking it off, because I also was told that those bays in the back were rented out. I don't know if that's true, but I think the town needs to look at the whole thing instead of piecing this, because detailing, I have 2 apartments upstairs and it's very hard to rent when you have people and cars coming in and out, parking any which way, and looking at, and you have neighbors and they're in residential area. I'm not in the residential area, but you have neighbors that are living there residentially and you have cars that have been in accidents sitting in a backyard. And where is all the trash going? Where is the junk going? So as much as, yes, the gentleman has done work on Mr. Dombrowski's property, but I'm not going to put down Mr. Dombrowski. He loved Branford. Okay? But the town has to take a handle on this, because if you look at that and then you go down and you look at Subaru and Kia and Honda and what they had to do, this does not look like that. And there needs to be respect in regard to the neighbor. So thank you very much. And once again, my name is Maureen Gherkin.
Chuck Gaines, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Gherkin. Are there other members of the public that wish to comment?
Just to reiterate, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button. You can also type in the chat that you'd like to speak.
Nobody?
I do not see any.
Okay. Okay, I believe we indicated we're going to continue this matter as a public hearing. Mr. Preddy, do you want to address, we heard some public comments or anything you'd like to address at this point? There's, a request that town review the multiple properties, but is there particular things you'd like to address at this point?
Jim Preddy again. So this application really is just for 17 at this point. We have discussed combining the properties in the next phase. As far as what goes on 23, I guess I would kind of defer to Mr. Iannino what's going on there currently, but there will be well, at least between 17 and 13 will have to be a more comprehensive plan once we get to that phase. This is the need here is to provide some space. If you've been by there, I mean, thankfully they're very busy and they're busting at the seams, and they need this garage space to be able to add on to the other building. So that was kind of the first step.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Preddy. Any other comments from commission members or staff? Again, I think the plan is to continue this. I don't think we need an extension because we just opened it this evening. And if we continue it to our next meeting, which would be on April 4th, then that's within the 35 days. Does that sound right, Harry?
Yep.
Yes, Harry Smith, town planner.
Okay. So are there any other comments from anyone? If not, then we will continue this matter again, the 17 North Main Street application, to our meeting on April 4th. And again, it's a Zoom meeting as well, starting at 7 p.m. So thank you, Ms. Preddy.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll move on to our next item. Actually, our next 4 items, which is all CP Branford LLC, care of John Nuff applicant, Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, aka Twist Realty Company owner, 329 East Main Street, aka 325 East Main Street. The applications are a PDD master plan, a PDD site plan, a subdivision, and a special exception for grading. Is the applicant ready to proceed with this?
We are, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 135 Broad Street here in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of CP Branford LLC. CP Branford is the contract purchaser of the property 325 East Main Street, consists of about 13 3/4 acres. But if you net out the wetlands and steep slopes, it's about 11.12 acres. It's currently in the BL zone, and as you all know, it is the site of the existing Walgreens pharmacy and the former Regal Cinema that's been vacant for a number of years. As you noted, Mr. Chairman, there are a number of applications before you: PDD master plan, site plan, special permit for grading, and a subdivision for 4 lots. You'll recall that we were before you last July 6th as part of a informal presentation to the commission, which, as you all know, is part of your your preferred PDD process, to have a dialogue with the commission. And I think that was a very productive meeting, and we took a lot from it. After that meeting, and we really took your comments to heart, and we continued the engagement with various other town stakeholders, including the Wetland Commission, the Fire Marshal, your town engineer, your zoning staff, and our nearby neighbors. So each of those exchanges impacted the design that we submitted back in February. And each of those exchanges, frankly, made the plan better than what we had originally proposed. Most recently, we received Harry's memo, staff memo, on Monday. It's a 12-page memo, and Harry clearly put a lot of thought into it, and we appreciate that. And we want to respond to Harry's memo in a very thoughtful and meaningful and substantive way. And so we're going to get into that a little bit this evening as well, because we started down that process. We can't obviously address everything that he brought up in that memo this evening because we just haven't had enough time, but we do want to show you that we've made considerable progress and we've taken Harry's comments to heart. So we're going to show you some of those bigger picture changes. But as I said, we can't show you everything. So for instance, as a result of Harry's comments, we're reducing the amount of impervious coverage. Well, reducing the impervious coverage means we have to change the drainage report. We can't possibly change the drainage report in 3 days. So there's a lot that we're coming back to you with in a couple of weeks, including details such as that, details with regard to the landscaping. There was a number of comments with regard to those. So we'll address those. We know that we have the SLR traffic peer review, and we're going to be, listen, there's nothing in the SLR report that is any way troubling, but we want to give you a comprehensive response and not do that iteratively. So we'll probably do that primarily next time as well. We're going to give you a traffic summary, but in terms of the detailed responses to the SLR report, that will wait till next time as well. So given all that, given the fact that we need to give you some more detailed responses, and we're certainly going to be keeping the hearing open, and we have a total of 5 people to present this evening because we have 3 different architects for 3 different buildings. We're going to keep this at a rather high level, but we do want to start by giving you sort of a history of the evolution of the site and what you're going to be seeing this evening as a result of all the different conversations we've had. And so that's why when you see the newest plan that we're showing you, it's not the fully engineered plan that we submitted, but it reflects the comments that we received from Harry on Monday. So in terms of how the project evolved, as I said, in July, we discussed the project with you on an informal basis. We talked about how the general area is sort of a standard retail, automotive, restaurants type of area. There's car washes and car repair and car dealerships and hotels. And, so it's generally a nice area. Obviously, MetroStar is under construction or mostly built on the other side of I-95 and exit 55. And one of the other things we talked about were the challenges and the opportunities that this site presented. And there's a lot of really good opportunities. We have an existing Walgreens, which is a great start. We have a vacant theater, which is in very good repair. I think we all agree that it makes sense to reuse that building. I think we all know that adaptive reuse is the most environmentally friendly way to construct a building. And so that's what we want to do. That building has considerable value. And I think you were all in agreement on that. I re-listened to the tape of our meeting back in July a few days ago. I don't want to put words in the commission members' mouth, but I think you were generally receptive to the adaptive reuse of that building as self-storage, not only Does it give us an opportunity to reuse that building, but obviously very little traffic and very little parking needs? We have the opportunity of having a signalized main entrance out onto Route 1. We have the opportunity to provide multifamily in a manner that is consistent with your plan of conservation development. We could also have the opportunity to provide affordable housing within that multifamily community. We still had room for an attractive restaurant pad. At the time, we showed you a drive-through restaurant and another restaurant that has been changed to a drive-through coffee shop, as well as a walk-in medical clinic. And despite all that, we still have the opportunity to remove impervious coverage and otherwise beautify the site. That's just sort of indicative of just how much pavement there is out there, that we can do all those things and still remove impervious coverage and add landscaping. And the challenges we documented as well, which is there is a significant amount of wetlands to the southeast of the site. Those will remain wooded. We're not touching those. We received unanimous approval from your Inland Wetland Commission. And we also talked about the restrictive covenant that goes back to the 1970s that cuts through that southeast portion of the site that does not allow us to build any structures beyond that line for the protection of our neighbors. As I said, I think your responses were generally positive. And just as a summary, you thought repurposing the cinema was a good idea. A number of you said the apartments made sense in this location. You liked the coffee shop. You said it sort of softened the look of the site. And you liked the fact that the patio was facing inwards. So give people an opportunity to have a cup of coffee outside and enjoy that area of the site. But you also have some suggestions as well, and I think it's probably more important. You thought the building was too tall. As you recall, that we have sort of this U-shaped building, and you were concerned about the heights, and you were mostly also concerned about how the fire department could fight fires in that area. You were concerned about maybe breaking the building into two would make it easier for the firefighters. You wanted more of a village feel, and you wanted a higher percentage of affordable. So we gave those suggestions a lot of thoughts. So first, with regard to the residential building, we actually did break it into two, and we required a height variance. And we submitted that height variance application, went to the public hearing, a number of our neighbors showed up, and we end up speaking with our neighbors, and we end up withdrawing that variance application. So you had concerns about the heights. We told you we were going to go to the ZBA. Our neighbors suggested that that wasn't a good idea, and so we withdrew that. And our architects literally went back to the drawing board. They were able to lower the height of the building so that we complied with the zone and the PDD's maximum height of 40 feet. I know that Harry wants an exhibit demonstrating how we get there, because Branford has an unusual way of calculating height, and we're happy to provide that. We just don't have that for you this evening. So we were able to figure out a way to comply with the maximum height requirements in the zone and the PDD. So that's one of the things that you had concerns about. We worked simultaneously with your fire marshal and the Inland Wetland Commission to provide a safe means of fighting fires on the backside of that building. As I mentioned, we are approved unanimously by the Inland Wetland Commission. Our three architects worked together to come up with a common theme for the exterior of the buildings. And when I say the exterior of the buildings, I'm talking about the multifamily, the restaurant and medical use, and the self-storage. They wanted to maintain the same language, the same palette, the same materials that would run through the entirety of the site. And I think that they were very successful in those efforts. And then after a meeting with Harry and Evan, some others this past fall, we went through your request for more affordable housing. And Harry brought up again the incentive housing zone. And as we all know, that the incentive housing zone requires 20% of the units to be affordable at 80% of the AMI. And after some thought, and frankly, at that meeting, we all looked at each other and said, okay, this is something we have to do. We are going to increase the percentage of affordable from 10% to 20%, consistent with the incentive housing zone. We're staying with the PDD for reasons I can explain, but for all practical purpose, we are just choosing a different way of skinning the affordable cat. And so we are still providing the same level of affordability that you had requested, and frankly, double of what we had originally submitted. So the applications that we submitted in February had all those changes from the presentation that we made to you last July. Most recently, as I noted, we received Harry's thoughtful comment letter. And so we want to show you the progress that we've made. It's only been a few days, but the team has been working, I can't say around the clock, but many hours of the day to try to show you, at least as a preliminary step, the changes we've been able to make in response to Harry's memo. And there's going to be a lot more to come, obviously, but when you see the plans that we give you, particularly when John Schmitz presents the overall site plan, you'll see that there are some changes made from the submission that we originally made, and so we're excited to show you those. So generally, here's what you're going to see that's different from what we submitted in February. We've reduced the number of parking spaces. We've decreased the impervious coverage. We consolidated the outdoor amenity space for the multifamily community. We created a much more significant landscaped entrance. We've improved pedestrian circulation. We've added a secondary emergency access. And besides those plan changes, we will comply with Section 5.7.g of your incentive housing regulations. We will reduce the number of permitted uses. We want to go through in greater detail Harry's recommended changes, but we will probably take those in their entirety, but we will reduce the total number of permitted uses in our new PDD zone. We will modify our bulk requirements on Exhibit B to include our residential density, and we will provide a draft declaration of easements that will govern things such as utilities, in particular stormwater, for the 4 lots that we're proposing. So we thought this was a really great idea from the very start. We've had a lot of exchanges with a lot of people, and we want to continue to improve on this. We want this to be a project that the commission and my clients and the team and the town can be very proud of, and frankly, really increase the amount of tax dollars that are going to be generated by the sites. So with that, I want to introduce the team that you're going to be hearing from this evening. I'm not going to introduce each one individually in order to save some time. But our first presenter is going to be John Schmitz, who's the project manager and an engineer from BL Companies that you know Schmitty from many other applications before you. Sal Talamo is our multifamily architect. He is with Ray Sullivan Architecture. Chris Michalik, who is the self-storage architect. Tom Scott, who's the architect for the coffee shop and the urgent care. And Rob Baltramitis is our professional engineer and traffic engineer. So with that, let me turn it over to John Schmitz, and he can walk you through the site plan as well as the changes that we've made since we submitted the application in February.
Hi, thanks, John. My name is John Schmitz. I'm a civil engineer and project manager with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the site plan in general. I think we can go to the next slide. So this is a copy of Plan AL1, is the survey, the existing conditions. And just to orient you with the existing plan, Route 1, East Main Street is along the left side of the plan, running up and down from the top to the bottom of the plan. Interstate 95, exit 55 on and off ramp is located at the top of the plan. The large rectangular building centrally located is the existing vacant cinema building. And then the smaller rectangular building on the left-hand side of the corner there, that would be existing Walgreens. There's currently 2 means of access to the site off of East Main Street. One is a right turn only driveway into the site at the lower left-hand corner, right there. And then we have a full signalized intersection for our main driveway, centrally located in the middle of the site. That is a 4-way intersection. Zane Cycles is located directly across the street from us. So they share the same traffic signal as we do. There's circulation throughout the site today. The site is approximately 63% impervious. There's roughly 622 parking spaces on site today. Obviously, the vast majority of that is unused since the cinema is vacant. It has been maintained, though, throughout, as has all the stormwater systems. With that said, there is a significant wetland area on the rear of the site. Yep, there you go, on the far right-hand side of the page. That area is one of the reasons why we ended up going to inland wetlands due to our proximity. We're certainly not developing that area. In fact, all of the work that we're going to talk about today is within the exact same development footprint that's already out there today. So we're within the existing curb line. We're keeping all of our development within the curb line that's already developed today. And then I just note along the bottom of if we go on the next slide, we could probably jump to the site plan. Sure. So this is a rendering of the site plan that was submitted with a planning and zoning application in February. You'll note the large rectangular building. The cinema is still there, still the same size location. Obviously, that's not moving. But we've added two new buildings. One is what I'll call a T-shaped residential building that is positioned parallel with the exit ramps. And then we have the smaller, roughly 5,000 square foot combination coffee shop and medical office building with drive-through fronting on East Main Street. We are maintaining our existing site access driveways, so we'll keep all the same traffic coming in and out of the main signalized driveway as is today, and then circulation throughout the site. There are several parking areas to access both the commercial as well as the residential lots. We've provided for amenity spaces to the rear of the residential building, correct there. And then you'll notice there's a dark gray band that's right there, kind of where the pointer is. That was installed as part of not only access for our stormwater system, but also for fire purposes, for emergency access, so that fire trucks could have access to that end of the building. You'll also note that down at the lower end of the building, correct there, we have a proposed dog park and an amenity space that's just to the right. Yep, that's just to the right of the existing cinema. That was where it was originally proposed. On the next slide, I'll walk you through some of the changes. And then as far as access to the storage building goes, if you came straight in the driveway, you would continue straight in, which is currently how things work today. If you access the cinema, there would be access through a fence, and you can get into the cinema, or rather into the storage building through that gate. Interesting to note, at the end of that driveway, the municipality has a sanitary sewer pump station. We've worked with town staff, with the WPCA town engineer to maintain that access for future access into that area. And I'll also show you on the next slide how that's been modified slightly. Again, with regards to sewer, we are currently in front of WPCA with an application for capacity analysis. The site is served by public water and sewer, as well as underground utilities for electric, telephone, and such. Now, if we jump down to the next slide, I'll show you some of the changes that we've made in the last couple of days. More or less the same, but what we've been able to do is to incorporate some of the recommendations that staff has made. Most notably, we've reduced the amount of impervious area by reducing some of the parking. So before I mentioned that the existing site has 622 spaces, today we're roughly about 357 parking spaces. I'm sorry, 347 parking spaces. So a significant reduction. And what that leads to is an increase in green space. And just by way of stormwater, the increase in green space, which is, again, roughly 47,000 square feet, just over an acre of new green space on site. That translates directly into a reduction in stormwater runoff. So when we look at the peak rate of stormwater runoff for all the storms, as well as the volume, we end up with a reduction in every storm that we've looked at from a peak runoff point of view, as well as from a volume point of view. And currently, the stormwater system on site is operating in fine condition. There are 3 hydrodynamic separators and 3 outlets that outlet stormwater into the wetland area today. We're going to be maintaining those to reuse them, so we're going to have very little impact to the wetlands. Some of the storm drains obviously have to be reconfigured as a result of the position of the buildings, but the system in general will operate very similar to how it operates today, and the discharge points will be remain the same. So that said, to continue with some of the other amenity changes, we've removed, you'll notice, the dog park from the right-hand side of the cinema building from the storage, and we've moved it closer to the wetlands on the right-hand side. It's moved away. And we've also, by virtue of removing some of the parking, we've created a much larger area for outdoor amenities directly adjacent to the building, the residential building, between the building and the fire access drive that's there. So that area increased significantly as a result of some of the changes. Another significant change you might note is next to the driveway. We previously had some parking in that area, and it was suggested by staff that we could find a better location for that parking and create a much larger green space area. So that's what we've done here. It provides for a better use of the land. And, we heard Attorney Nuff speak a little bit about the landscaping before. And this provides an opportunity for us when we come back to increase the aesthetics of the area by providing some better landscaping, certainly in that area as an entry park into the center. So again, we modified some of the parking at location, as well as some of the sidewalks. And we also went through the comments from staff. One of the things they asked us to do was to revisit the dumpster locations, the amount. We did add some additional dumpsters in the lower right corner at that location, specifically to provide some additional storage for the residential uses. With regards to sidewalks, it's a very walkable community. We've been able to provide sidewalks throughout the development, not only connecting each of the buildings, but also connecting to Route 1, where there are currently existing sidewalks, as well as 2 bus stops. So residents of the development have opportunities to walk not only to the pharmacy, but to the coffee shop, to the bus stop, to Zane Cycles, up and down Route 1, which is already has a large increase in sidewalks recently. So again, we've been able to create a community here that really fits in well with the area. Maybe we jump down to the next slide. It may just show. Yeah, so this slide just kind of does a better job of illustrating some of the sidewalks that we've added onto the site. The red lines on the site itself illustrate the proposed walks throughout our development, and then it shows connectivity to the existing sidewalks along Route 1. That is highlighted by the gold or yellow lines on both sides of Route 1. Again, existing bus stops up there. And in addition to that, I just wanted to just mention that we would again be revising some of our landscape plans, stormwater, lighting. We've kind of made some headway in the last couple of days to take as much as we could do to make some revisions, but we've still got some work ahead of us as far as the detailed design goes, and we will be addressing that in the future with a revised submission. With that, that's kind of a high-level overview of the site in general. I'm going to pass things off to Sal, who's going to give you an overview of the residential building.
Hello, my name is Sal Talamo from the Sullivan Architectural Group. The residential portion of the project consists of three-story multifamily wood frame building. The building offers 116 units with 176 parking spaces at 1.5 spaces per unit, provided in several lots. With our architectural experience for this type of project development, providing 1.5 parking spaces is appropriate and necessary regarding the suburban setting of the project's location. With the recent reduction in parking, the previously proposed multiple exterior spaces will now be consolidated into one larger area, offering an opportunity for more enhanced exterior space benefiting the tenants. This was what was previously discussed. The building is laid out in a T-shaped configuration with a centralized corridor with units on each side. Can we go to the next slide? So that was the amenity space there. So here, this is the first floor where we can see the corridor and the units. The ground level, which we see here, features an amenity space that consists of a club room, fitness center, business center, and the exterior terrace at grade as shown. The next slide, which shows the typical floor plan, has stairwells at each end of the wing with direct access to the exterior, with an elevator lobby at the intersection of each wing. On the next slide shows a corner perspective. The intent of the massing of the building is for the traditional New England mill village. The aesthetic features a contemporary look with traditional materials. The building geometry consists of flat roofs broken up with variations in the cornice line, providing the building's massing with proportion and scale. The darker masonry with lighter clapboard siding provides a contrast to the massing. Various arrangements of double hung fenestration further articulate the building's geometry. Balconies with metal railings break up the facade, providing an added layer of scale and depth, as well as providing the tenants with their own private exterior space. The next slide shows a section with the building's height at 3 stories. We are below the required 40-foot max, and there is no need for a variance as previously mentioned. The height to the tallest parapet is 39 feet 8 inches, and to the lowest parapet it's 36 feet. This 44-foot difference offers a variety in scale and proportion, driving the building's character. The next slide shows the other sections as discussed, the higher on the left and the lower on the right. And to conclude the last slide, the mill building's massing is cladded in traditional materials with contemporary contrast and color, providing the community with both a modern and timeless aesthetic. The extent of the variation in the building's geometry offers its tenants a variety in articulation, as well as offering the town a revitalization of the property's past. So that pretty much sums up the residential architecture portion of the project.
All right, Sal, thank you. I think we're on to Chris next.
Good evening, Chris Michalak, partner at SGW Architects in Chicago. So as John mentioned earlier, this is a adaptive reuse of the existing movie theater. And basically what we're doing is we're taking about a 46,000 square foot footprint, making about a roughly 90,000 square foot self-storage facility by inserting a new level in the existing height of the existing movie theater building. One of the things that we were keen on and in noting here is that we relocated the entrance of the movie theater around to the facade that faces East Main. This gives the building a little bit more of a commercial presence where it's needed and removes its point of activity away from the proposed residential building. We also picked up on some of the cues, architectural cues from the residential building. If we can go to the next slide. Here's our corner view. We're also picking up on the variable cornice lines that were proposed in the residential building, mimicking some mullions in some new windows in this corner of the building, and even picking up on some of the materials. So we're going to be proposing a new brick clad corner here, really to emphasize the point of doing business for the self-storage facility. You can see the residential building in the background and how that might have a dialogue as you move through the site. Another point, and I think what is interesting about all 3 of these buildings is that just above the first floor, there's a kind of a consistent black datum line that really ties all 3 buildings together. For the rest of the building, we're more or less going to be keeping it the same. We will be painting it and picking up on the similar color palettes as the other 2 buildings, again, to maintain a sort of harmonious one project feel to the entire site. A quick note here on the right-hand side, you'll see an access gate. So basically, as you're renting a unit, you would park in the parking that's in the foreground, go to the office, pick up your key fob or your gate code, and then any access that you would do to the storage portion of the building would be behind this gate, completely secured. Only customers can get back there. And I think we can go to the next sheet, talk about operations a little bit. So on the bottom middle of the sheet is the existing now two-story building. The office is on the left-hand side that's facing East Main. And all the way on the right-hand side, we're going to have a completely interior loading area. So a customer would drive back to the back of the building, using their access code to move through the gate. That same access code would be required to open the loading area through a couple of overhead doors. And then those doors would close, and the customer would unload their stuff and transport them to their rented unit. And then also to touch on security a little bit more, the size of this building is probably about 35 cameras inside and out. It is 24-hour monitored. There will be a on-site manager and assistant manager, probably during normal business hours being 9 to 5. Access hours to the facility are probably 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 10 p.m. It probably won't be a 24-hour facility. The main operators, although I don't think we have one on board yet, but most of the big operators like Extra Space, Life Storage, CubeSmart, and the like, they're not 24-hour facilities, and they're really meant to be, for the residential storage uses. And with that, I think that's a nice nutshell of the storage building.
Thank you, Chris. And the next presenter is Tom Scott.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I hope I've made Mr. Scott a co-host. I'm not sure that I picked that up right. So,
Harry, I think he's all the way down at the bottom of the list.
No, I found him.
Okay.
Should be all set. Thank you.
There you go. I was able to unmute. And let's see if this video, there's the video. Hi, my name is Tom Scott. I'm a project architect from Scott Griffin Architects for the retail building. This is obviously the smallest building on the site at about 5,300 square feet. There's planned 2 tenants in the building, about 3,000 square feet for the medical office use, the walk-in, urgent care type use, and then the coffee use, which would be, as we've depicted, a Starbucks. The Starbucks would also have a drive-through pickup window on the Route 1 side of the building. The Starbucks has a brick veneer. It's a little hard to see in the rendering, but similar to the other buildings on the site, we tried to build or design this building so that it had a complementary style to the buildings that are adjacent, the residential and storage buildings. The Starbucks building has 2 styles of brick. It has a vertical soldier coursing above the 10-foot height, and a stacked horizontal coursing down below. So the whole facade of the Starbucks building is a brick veneer building. There's a visual screen on the roof, which would be a black metal horizontal louvered element that would hide all of the rooftop equipment. The height of the building is 20 feet, has a black metal edge metal on the top of the roof parapet. We've incorporated a black metal canopy element about 3 foot 6 deep that surrounds the building on 2 sides, which basically defines the storefront windows. It wraps the building around to the That's right, to this side of the building as well. On this side of the building, you can see there's an outdoor dining area to the left. The outdoor dining area has tables, chairs, umbrellas, site amenities. Um, there's also a similar canopy, as you can see in the lower rendering, that wraps around the pickup window on the back side of the building. Similar black metal, but that particular element where it bumps out from the building is wrapped with an articulated wood, like a rough sawn wood material. And that wood material is repeated again below the canopy where the storefront is in several locations. So there's a kind of a recurring theme of materials around the building. There's Starbucks branded signage on the building as well as on the complimentary order boards and menu boards. The building to the right is the medical office. Slightly taller than the Starbucks, again, to help conceal the rooftop equipment. The panel facade will be a nichia, which is a cement based material, a panel. So it'll be a very systematic and organized panel material. We've introduced a similar kind of eyebrow canopies over the window elements, accentuating the window locations with a wood material in the recess just above the canopy. So again, kind of repeating some of the similar elements, not only around this building, but from adjacent buildings on the site. The windows are black aluminum to complement the adjacent tenant setback. They're set back slightly in a recess that allows the accent band above. The horizontal shade canopies are accentuating the window locations. The building is a simple modern design with ample space for future tenant signage. So again, we don't know who the tenant is going to be, but we've allowed for plenty of space for signage. The side and rear of the space will have matching EIFS panels to help control costs, but it'll be defined with reveal elements that will be similar to the panels out in front of the building. All utilities will be screened by landscaping and fenced enclosures, and the trash enclosure will be a solid masonry element screening with a lockable metal gate that will enclose the trash and recycling receptacles. That's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple building, again, designed to be complementary to the adjacent buildings on the site. And that's pretty much it. We pass on to whoever's doing the next traffic impact study.
Which is Rob Baltramitis.
Okay.
Thank you, Attorney Nuff. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For your record, my name is Rob Baltramitis. I'm a consulting traffic engineer. I have over 30 years experience as a traffic engineer, a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. When I testify as a traffic engineer, I do like to qualify myself. So if you would indulge me for a minute. In addition to those many years of consulting, I've also spent 24 years as a municipal engineer and a public works director. In that capacity, I give advice and direction to the land use commissions in my town, as well as our legal traffic authority on traffic matters and MUTCD, or Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices compliance. I also maintain and operate 30 town-owned traffic signals, including a computerized closed loop system to keep them all coordinated. So BL Companies is the traffic engineer of record. I get brought in on some of their projects, usually larger ones, to really collaborate with them during the preparation of the traffic impact study. I think what they find is I bring almost a level of a peer review from a municipal standpoint. And that is the case here. So thank you for indulging me. I will also keep my presentation as a very high level overview, if you will. The traffic study prepared by BL Companies is dated December 2023. Like many traffic reports, it's voluminous. It's over 200 pages. And again, very high level overview. So the purpose of a traffic impact study is to determine the impact, if any, that a land development project is going to have on the adjacent roadway network, as well as recommend mitigation if any is required. And we do that, we determine if there's an impact by building, analyzing, and comparing traffic models for what are called the existing, the no build, and the build conditions. And I will describe each of those in a minute. And we're going to develop those models for certain periods of consideration. And for this project, we're considering weekday morning commuter peak periods, the weekday PM commuter peak periods, as well as Saturday midday peak periods. Next slide. Thank you. So to develop these models, we need to collect data. The first thing, the most obvious, obviously, is traffic volume data. We're going to count cars at our intersections by movement, by approach. And by movement, I mean, are they turning left? Are they going straight? Are they turning right? In addition to the traffic volumes, we're also going to collect roadway and intersection data. What's the lane arrangements? What are the lane widths? What are the traffic controls? Is it stop sign controlled? If so, is it an all-way stop? Is it a two-way stop? Is the intersection signalized? If so, what are the signal phasings and what are the timings? And these are all things that go into these models to ultimately determine what the vehicular flow capacity is of the intersections and what the average driver delay is at each of the intersections. And I'll talk more about that when I get into the analysis portion. So the next slide, as I mentioned, there are 7 intersections that we counted and included in the study. This graphic actually shows 6 of those intersections, and I'll explain why it's not showing one. So the blue star is Branford Square Plaza. That, of course, is our site. Directly fronting our site is what we call driveway number 1 to the site. That's our primary driveway. It's a signalized 4-way intersection with our site driveway and Route 1, also serving the Walgreens to our south and is opposite Zane Cycles. Going to the south, we counted the unsignalized right turn in only driveway. We call that driveway number 2 to our site. It's on the south side of Walgreens. It's not depicted here because the graphic just gets a little tight. Continuing to move to the south, we also included the signalized 4-way intersection of Route 1 at Windmill Hill Road. That's opposite the Motel 6. And finally, to the south, we analyzed the signalized T intersection of Route 1 at Mill Plain Road. The other intersections in our study, if we move to the north of the site, the first one is the signalized 4-way intersection of Route 1 at the I-95 northbound interchange opposite the commuter lot. That's interchange number 55. Continuing north, the signalized T intersection of Route 1 at the I-95 southbound interchange. And finally, further to the north is the signalized T intersection of Route 1 at North Branford Road, which is State Route 139. So once we collect all these volumes and the roadway data and the traffic control information, we can start to prepare and put together our existing condition model. So the next model that we want to build is what we call the no build condition model. And that is the existing, sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so the no build condition is essentially the existing conditions at the time of our project completion, but it does not include our site traffic. So simply put, in our case here, this is a project that we feel can be built in 2 years. The study, again, was dated December of 2023. We want to know in 2 years, in December of 2025, what are the existing conditions? So we have to take our existing conditions and we apply a annual growth rate. And this area, it's according to the DOT, it's 0.8% annually. So we make that increase. And also in the no build traffic, we want to include trips associated with other developments in the area that are approved but not yet constructed. And I believe Attorney Nuff mentioned the Metro Star project on the other side of the highway to us. When we did our counts in the late June of 2023, that project had begun but wasn't yet completed. So in our no build condition, we add traffic that represents the full completion of the Metro Star project. And so that is our no build model scenario. And finally, we need to model the build condition, which does include our new site trips. Probably the next slide, please. Okay, and under our build condition, we're going to be applying the traffic, and as I mentioned, the site is served by our primary driveway, which we call driveway number 1, which is a signalized driveway to Route 1, and also by a second driveway, the right turn in only on the opposite side or south side of the Walgreens sites. Those new site trips get applied to, they get superimposed onto those no build trips to represent the build condition. So if we could go to the next slide, I want to talk about how we estimate new site traffic. So estimates for new site traffic come from a publication called the Trip Generation Manual. It's published by ITE, or the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's currently in its 11th edition. And what that manual is really is a compilation of studies that compares some measurable aspect of a land development project with the number of trips that it generates. So for example, for a gas station, you might estimate the trips based on the number of gas pumps. For a hotel, it may be the number of guest rooms. For our case, for the retail component, which is the coffee shop, for the self-storage component and office uses, those trip estimates are based on the square footage. And for residential, it's based on the number of dwelling units. Like I said, the manual is in its 11th edition. It has grown tremendously in the 30 years I've been using it. And it gets very specific for the uses. And as an example, the residential component, it's not just residential dwellings. It's actually specific to this type of project, which is entitled multifamily housing mid-rise. And I'm just going to give you the definition of that. Mid-rise multifamily housing, including apartments, townhouses, condominiums, located within the same building with at least 3 other dwellings that have between 3 and 10 floors. So again, the manual can be very, very specific, and it is for each of our 4 land uses in this case. So if I could have the next slide, please. All right, this is a table that summarizes the trip generation characteristics of our site. You can see each of the 4 different components, the rates from ITE trip generation, and the totals. One thing I will mention is that not all of our new site traffic is new to the roadway system. It's all new to the driveway, but when you start looking at the adjacent roadway network, not all of it is new. And ITE and DOT methodologies allow for a pass-by credit for some retail uses, such as the coffee shop. So when I'm explaining pass-by credit to people, I like to use the example of a gas station. So if we're home and we realize and think we need gas in our car, we're probably not running out to get gasoline. We're going to do it the next morning when we're out on the way to another destination. And that is the perfect example of pass-by traffic. So what ITE allows for coffee shops is a 50% bypass credit, for the site-generated traffic associated with coffee shops. So at the end of the day, our project is anticipated to generate 156 new trips during the morning peak period, 118 in the afternoon peak period, and 165 new trips during the Saturday midday peak period. So this is where I like to break things down a little bit. If we take that worst case of 165 trips in an hour associated with this, I think to most people, wow, that sounds like a lot. Now, traffic does not arrive uniformly. It arrives randomly. But if it did arrive uniformly, 165 trips is less than 3 new trips in a minute. So when you think about that, you start to say to yourself, taking the site driveway, for example, there's 1,500 cars that are processed through Route 1 at our site driveway. If we add 3 new cars in a minute, I don't think you could notice the difference. And I couldn't notice the difference. So again, I just like to take these ITE numbers and really break them down to real world. The next slide, please. Okay. What this slide is showing us, so while the theater building is of course vacant, I think it's worthwhile to compare what the site could generate tomorrow if an operator came in and took over that theater for its original use. And based on ITE trip data, with the exception of the morning peak hour, because of course theaters wouldn't generate much, if any, traffic in the morning, what we find is for the PM peak hour and the Saturday midday, that our project actually generates much less traffic than that theater would in operation. So, and it's almost 200 cars less in the afternoon peak period, and about 60 cars less in the Saturday peak period. So like I mentioned, the new site trips, they get applied to that no build condition, superimposed based on travel patterns in the area to develop our build scenario. So now we have our 3 models, our existing, our no build, and our build. The next thing we need to do is analyze those models. Next slide, please. And we analyze the models using software entitled Synchro that is made by Trafficware. It is the most widely used and accepted traffic modeling software in our industry. It's based on the methodology of the Highway Capacity Manual published by the Federal Highway Administration. And at the end of the day, for each intersection and for each study period and for each model scenario, what the models are doing is calculating the average vehicle delay. How much delay is that driver experiencing? And then the delay is tied to the measure that defines the operation of the intersections, and that's a level of service. So, and as drivers, we've all felt this. You know, when you arrive at a traffic signal, did you get processed through in a few seconds, or did you arrive and it took you 2 cycles and 5 minutes to get through? So for each range of delay, level of service is assigned a letter grade. You can see the colored chart. Green obviously being very good operation based on that average delay, and F being, a failing operation or excessive delay. So the next slide. Thank you. What you're looking at here is the resultant overall level of services for the study intersections for the no build and build conditions for the AM, the PM, and the Saturday peak period. So I do want to keep this again, and we're all using the term high level overview, and I'm going to keep it that way. We could obviously get into each intersection and each overall level of service. In fact, we could go a step further and talk about level of services for each of the approaches. But again, keeping it high level, and what should jump out at you are the colors that you see here. And you're seeing a lot of greens and some yellows. And what that is suggesting is that what we have out here and what we'll continue to have out here are very good and good levels of service, even with the new site traffic. And that really is the conclusion of the traffic impact study. As far as mitigation, next slide, please. The mitigation is really to be on site. There's 2 suggestions. One is on there's 2 ingress lanes into the site. The leftmost lane, we're looking to convert that to an exclusive left turn lane to better serve and improve circulation to get to the mixed use development. And in conjunction with that, we're also looking to shorten the existing raised median island within that site driveway, also to facilitate that left turn into the mixed use portion of the site. This project, and I should say the site, Branford Square, presently has a major traffic generator certificate from OSTA, the Office of State Traffic Administration. We have to go to them for a revision with this project, so that is another level of review by traffic professionals this project will have. And then finally, as mentioned by Attorney Nuff, the commission has SLR as a peer reviewer to the traffic impact study. We did just see their letter of their peer review letter of March 18th. From our preliminary review of it, we feel that we will be able to discuss with SLR and respond satisfactorily to address all of their comments. We'll be doing that over the next month. And that concludes my presentation. I will turn it back over to Attorney Nuff, and I believe we will all remain for any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rob. So, Mr. Chairman, as we noted, we still have some work to do, primarily to respond to Harry's comment letter and also the SLR letter. But we want to hear your thoughts in terms of the progress that we've made, not only in the past few days, but frankly the progress that we've made since we all talked to you last July. I mean, we think that, or we certainly hope that you feel that we've been adequately responsive, and we can continue the dialogue in terms of how to make this site the best we possibly can.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Nuff. At this point, why don't we start with our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, you prepared the memo, and I know that Mr. Nuff and his team spent a lot of time responding and indicating some reactions to that. So perhaps you could run through part of that with us at this to start off with. Harry, you muted.
Sorry about that. Harry Smith, Town Planner. First, I just want to express my appreciation for the flexibility of the applicants and the development team and Mr. Nuff in looking at the comments and getting right to it and trying to see how they could adjust things on the site. I mean, my goal as well as their goal, I think, is to make this the best project possible, assuming the commission does vote to go ahead with it, because you are, when it comes right down to it, doing a zoning regulation change as the PDD approval process would dictate. So that's, it's a high level of discretion on the part of the commission. That all being said, I'll go through my comments again at a summary level as well and skip over things that are either addressed or in the process of being, addressed a little bit more. So I think the best thing for me to do is share my screen. Rather than go over the memo point by point, I'll just have a copy of some of the sheets from the plan up and highlight things with my cursor, I think, is the best approach. And just note some things that haven't been touched on yet, or I'd like to highlight. So you should be able to see, and I blew this up a little bit. This is the, I believe, the overall site plan that has some of the zoning table information on it. Seems to be the clearer image that I had available. I would like to note briefly, there is an underlay here. If you can see sort of in shadow of the existing parking lot layout. For example, as my cursor is going over a couple of the islands in front of where the drop-off area was for the Regal Cinema. And you can see a parking lot island kind of here and some spaces. So it not really taking a lot away from this particular sheet, but a couple of the other sheets become very busy with the underlaying layer. And I think, I see what the commission members think. I had a little trouble reading some of the things, particularly in the landscaping and the lighting plans, because you had a lot of information. And I don't really think it's necessary on all the sheets. So maybe we could take it off so we could, as we're preparing revisions, it'll be a little clearer what's on the landscaping and lighting sheets at least. There are a couple of comments, and I don't have the revised plans to refer to, but I don't know if it was possible to make any changes up here. There could be a little more landscaping up here, whether this parking area, I know, was reconfigured a bit, I think, on the revision. So yeah, that's a possible comment here I had of trying to look at creating a little more green space possibly up here. Since I'm on this side of the site, I will show you quickly a picture of the front. I think this was actually as a side shot of this on one of the slides on the traffic report. There's a line almost continuous, pretty mature, and I believe they're junipers, at least they were. I looked at a copy of the site plan for the movie theater, actually the landscaping plan back from 1997 when it was approved by the commission. And it was a pretty successful effort at planting junipers and creating some screening along here. And flipping back to the full site plan, you can see this is the drive-through, of course, for the proposed coffee shop. So right here, the landscape strip along Route 1 in this location is currently about 15 feet, I believe, till you get to the curb and the pavement. The plan at this point, as far as unless it's been revised, proposes halving that to 7.5 feet, which is the zoning regulation requirement. However, in doing that, you're going to lose that line of junipers, and you've got drive-through traffic here. So in early morning, evening hours during the dark of the year, you're going to have headlight glare shining down this way as traffic is going this way on Route 1. And I think to minimize, it's a little bit of a grade drop, not a lot, maybe a couple of feet down from Route 1 in here, I believe. But I think keeping that line of junipers and enhancing it a little bit would be a real important element in shielding the drive-through lane from existing traffic. And it'll enhance, I think, the attractiveness of the property. You're still certainly going to be able to see the nicely designed pad site here with the two uses. And I think there will certainly be a visual presence of those two uses, from Route 1, and no intention really to hide that. But I think screening at a low level, particularly to, buffer the headlight glare, would be important. Let's see, so many things were addressed, so I'll just skip right over some of the comments I had here about combining the areas. I mean, I did mention possibly another amenity. So if you've got essentially this whole area now as open space, which I think is great, whether there could be some additional element beyond the, I think it's a tot lot. Is there a tot lot here? Plus outdoor seating area? Maybe it's just outdoor seating area. But something like, I don't know if there sure will be some children in this development, given that it's 116 units, but that could be something could be added, or some other feature like community gardens or something. So, I mean, I did live in an apartment building very early on in my career in Northwest DC, and it was 12-story apartment building, and there was just a beautiful area of gardens that were maintained by some of the residents. And it wasn't very large, but it gave some people an opportunity to get out and do that kind of thing adjacent to where they lived. So moving on, I think the uses sound like they're being adequately addressed in terms of giving my comments, and we can work that out further as necessary. I will note, when I looked at the density for the residential building, as applied to the entire property, which is one at this point, I believe, is about 11 dwelling units, I think, per acre. If you just looked at, and again, I'm going to mention, I don't think this was really touched on the presentation, but there is a proposal to divide the property as part of this application set into 4 pieces. There would be one property here for Walgreens, essentially, another parcel for the pad site in front, and then the residential would have full frontage. So it wouldn't be an interior lot, but would have a dog leg effectively. This would be for the residential building, and the remainder of the property in the middle here for self-storage facility. If you look at the acreage here, the net acreage, which I believe is for just under 5 acres, and the 116 units, that gives you a density of about 23.5 dwelling units an acre, which is over the incentive housing zone kind of, cap of 20. Whether that's problematic or not, I'm not too concerned, frankly, personally, as staff, about the density level, with the exception of possibly setting precedent. or as that in combination with commercial development here is, it presented a challenge, I think, to the development team to come up with a plan. I think it's getting even more improved as time goes on here, but there's a lot of constraints in coming up with a site and a layout that works as well as possible. So there are some, proposed, I think, things to consider. Going back to the landscaping plan here, which again, as you can see, it's pretty busy. Fire access, I want to look at the arborvitae here. I think I mentioned that. There is moving sort of this up here. There are the backs of residential properties that front on Meadow Circle Drive here. This is all the wetland areas, so there's no real, I don't know where the residential zone starts, but I think it's not any quicker than the property line of the applicant here, which is well back from the developed area of the site. So effectively, there's a residential district buffer here. I think at least doing a rough outline of where the tree line is and the fact that it's all wooded, I think that information should be presented. I don't think we need to get into what kind of trees are in that area. But there are some vegetation along here that's not really indicated. I don't believe, I think there was some plantings put in 97 or when the movie theater was built after that, to kind of enhance the buffer here. But I think that requirement for the residential district buffer needs to be addressed, either through the existing vegetation or some combination of even further enhancements if that's needed. There is a short retaining wall up here, I think no taller than 2.5 to 3 feet at the very, very maximum. There's a wooded area here along the ramp, but seasonally it is visible. I don't know what the treatment of that is. I don't believe I saw anything on the plans unless I missed it. Either, some detail about the wall and or the regulations to require proposing some vegetation. There's, I believe, there's a tree line noted here, so I don't think the intent, I would imagine, is not just serve that as little as possible. And there has been, the property lines augmented with some vegetation, certainly here and along here. But looking at what's possible, just even some plantings to drape over the wall to break it up a little is something that commissions asked for and required before. There is no information at this point other than the 97 landscape plan for the Walgreens portion of the property. I think the lighting that's there now, that's going to be retained. And the landscaping should be shown on the plans because that's part of the development, even if it's not changing much. It's possible some things would need to be upgraded to comply with existing regulations. Lighting itself, I won't talk much about that because that might be in the process of being modified, but the proposed pole height of about just a little over 23 feet, I think, is the height. It really gives it a commercial. That's the typical height for commercial parking lot fixtures. I think would go a long way towards enhancing the residential feel of this residential part of the development. By dropping that down, I would recommend around 15 feet. Requires more poles, that's true, but I think it would keep that ceiling lower. It would reduce the potential for light trespass into the windows of some of the residential units facing here and here. This building's it's going to be a little tough in views. I mean, upper floor might be nicer, but you've got the highway here going this side, then you got a parking lot, and this repurposed building's going to be a self-storage facility that way. And the real, views of some vegetation are going to be really limited to this side of the building, I would imagine. So things that can be done to make it less commercial in appearance, I think, would be very beneficial. That's certainly, I think, one of them. A few missing items. I mean, I'm sure will be addressed. Bicycle parking, snow storage. I have not heard anything about proposed phasing, so whether it's going to be all in one phase or it's going to be broken out. It's unclear at this point and should be clarified. We did do the statutorily required referrals for the PDD to the town engineer's office, police department, the fire department, and East Shore Health District. In terms of comments we received back, the fire department just requested that there be a 20-foot level grade area on the I-95 ramp side of the building. And as was mentioned in the presentation, this is in an area where a fire truck is either it's going to be gravel or structural soil or something to support a fire truck so they can get closer to the back of the building for deployment if needed. The engineering office had seemingly no concerns about the stormwater system, which I understand is going to be extremely minimally modified from what's there currently. We have typically, or the commission's typically put in some kind of conditions to have that system evaluated and made sure that, the maintenance, even though the state has taken place, just to verify that and see if anything needs to be repaired, if nothing else. We received no comments from East Shore Health District other than to note that the coffee shop is a restaurant, would need to be approved by them. And I've yet to get comments from the police department. One other comment I just wanted to note, this is part of the access management district. So it's not really on this sheet of the plan, but let's see if I can, on this sheet, maybe it'll be present. No, that cuts off too. But well, you guys can see right down here, this I believe is the part of the property of Branford Auto Center that extends down to the intersection of East Main Street and Windmill Road. Similar to the development that occurred on the other side of I-95 by MetroStar, just having some kind of easement in place for potential access here through this two properties, should that site ever be redeveloped to be something I bring up to the commission's attention as staff that is part of the access management district requirements to look at that and put that in place as it makes sense. There is one large sign here, I believe, somewhere in the meeting, I think here, between the two parts of the access drive. How that's going to be done with the subdivision is unclear. The whole subdivision itself brings up some questions of, first off, is I don't know if it's a resub or not. There was a subdivision approved by the commission in concert with the cinema approval that sliced out a parcel for Walgreens. I'm not sure if that was ever filed with the town clerk in order to make it effective, or not. But if that was done, then this would be a re-subdivision. All that does is change the time frame for review from 65 days to 65, 35, 65, which is 65 days open hearing, 35 days to have the hearing, 65 days to make a decision. So assuming it's a subdivision, since it, my understanding, relies on the approval of the PDD in order to be approvable under the subdivision regulations, then the PDD would need to be effective before you could act and approve the subdivision application. So assuming we're going to have, further sections of the public hearing and may not get to a vote until later in April at the earliest, at that point, I want to be careful of the timeframes and make sure we're not running out of the 65-day review period. So I'm sure we'll all keep track of that. It does bring another question, which is open space. There's a requirement in subdivision regulations for open spaces, as the commission knows. That is for when a subdivision is for the purposes of residential development. It does bring up the question of, with the development of at least part of the subdivision area for residential development, should be applying that open space requirement or not. There is certainly area that's restrained from development already, but based on various encumbrances of the property, plus the new outdoor rec area. The requirement could possibly be very easily addressed already in terms of the layout of the site and restrictions on developing it. But I just bring that up to make the commission aware of it. And in the end, I think it would be up to you to decide whether it applies or not, I think. I think that's pretty much everything I've got. I'll just note though that I don't know if you're going to be submitting copies of what you presented tonight, Mr. Knopf, just to have them in the file.
Correct, Harry. I mean, we would be happy to send a PDF of everything we presented tonight.
That'd be great.
First in the morning. I mean, candidly, as I said, I mean, some of these things were finished
No, sure. Yeah.
maybe an hour before the meeting.
Yeah, understood. But does bring up a question of when, and I understand you probably would need a large part of next week to complete the process coming up with the fully revised plans. And that, frankly, is my review period because we try to get comments to the commission out Friday before the meeting, which I barely made last week, which is why you get comments till Monday morning. So I don't know, we can certainly continue it if that's your choice to the next meeting. But I want to leave myself enough time. I want to leave you time to see my comments for the next round too. So we can just play that out, but I just want to note that.
Candidly, I thought of that myself. But let me talk to the team tomorrow morning, and I don't want to waste the commission's time. But if we think that we can make, some significant headway, then I think it might make sense to go forward at the next meeting. But a little bit too soon to tell.
That's fine. Yeah. So I'm going to stop there in the interest of time, and I think I've touched everything I wanted to touch. We do have the peer review consultant here, and I'm going to, if Mr. Chairman, you're okay with that, turn it over to him to go through the peer review comments.
Chuck Andrews here. Yes, certainly. We're happy to hear from our peer review consultant.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me one second. My voice is a little scratchy.
Sorry, I should have introduced you, Anthony Russo.
Yes,
of SLR.
Yes, Anthony Russo from SLR. Office is located in New Haven. The applicant gave a very thorough presentation of what's included in a traffic study, the methodologies, and the ultimate goal of a traffic study is to determine if the proposed project has an impact on traffic operating conditions on the roadway network. So I appreciate that introduction that he gave. Couple of comments. I'm not going to go through each comment. Some of the stuff I can see has been somewhat addressed, but I'll go over some of the more important ones for the board. Traffic impact studies not only look at level of service, and there was a slide put up to show that the overall level of service was still in what's considered a good range during peak hour operating conditions. But traffic impact studies also take a look at queue as well to see if the turn lanes in the area are impacted by the project. So in other words, if there's a turn lane where there is a existing queue or a no-bill queue, and the project is going to make that lane exceed its capacity or exacerbate it further, that could be a queue impact. So one of the comments that we have is for Table 7, where they present queuing information, is for them to include the storage length in feet of all exclusive turn lanes analyzed in the study area, and to also take a look to see if the proposed project would have an impact on the storage capacity. If indeed that's the case, and I'm not saying it is, they'll take a look at that, they'll address the comment, then there may be something that needs to be done to the traffic light or to the turn lane so we don't have traffic spilling back from the through lane, from the turn lane into a through lane, causing congestion. So it's traffic impact study looks at more than just level of service change. It also takes a look at queuing and storage. And to that point, I was out there during weekday peak hours, made some observations at the US Route 1 and North Branford Road left turn lane. And just based on my observations on that day, there are times, it's not a very long left turn lane. There are times I noticed that the cars stacked in that left turn lane were, took up the entire lane. And depending how people stacked and the space in between the cars, the tail end of the last car in the turn lane was kind of hanging out in the through lane. So my concern with the project is you're going to be adding opposing traffic to that. That could increase the delay. The left turn lane is and that could also cause a queue issue as well. So that was one of the observations at the Route 1 North Branford road intersection. So again, I encourage the applicant to take a look at queue in terms of impacts, not just level of service. The other thing that's very important for traffic studies, to look at all components, not just vehicular. Look at pedestrians, look at bike, look at emergency access. The traffic study should present for the largest piece of equipment that the town of Branford Fire Department has, the circulation through the site and also as it enters and exits the site. And there is a median at the main driveway. Can they make this turn safely? Can they make this turn without hitting the median? So I think that's something that they need to show, that it could enter and exit the site and you could circulate the site. Also, since there's going to be a warehouse, I'm not certain, if they're going to have a certain restriction on any trucks that may come in and out, but the largest truck that will come into the site, for the mini warehouse or for deliveries to the coffee shop, that should also be examined to see how it enters and exits the site, and as well as how it circulates the site. The other thing is, I know that the parking is another important component here. The traffic study should state what the parking demand is, what the parking supply is based on the municipal and state requirements, and also ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which was discussed earlier in Mr. Boltemitis' presentation. They have a shared parking analysis. There is, when you have a mixed-use project, they don't always peak at the same time, these uses. Sometimes when one is peaking, the other one doesn't have much demand, and it changes throughout the day. So if they take a look at a shared parking analysis, they may find, I don't know, that they don't even need as much parking as they're showing. And that may give an opportunity for the town to consider, if they so choose to, creating more green space. I take as an example at the northern part of the site, as you go around the drive-through, there's like 10 parking spaces there. Maybe there's the potential to eliminate those parking spaces if you do a share parking analysis, and that could provide an opportunity for landscaping, a nice gateway entrance to the community that they're proposing, and a nice gateway into the town of Branford. So again, looking at a shared parking analysis could change the way the town and the state view the amount of parking required. The other thing which I noticed in driving out there, and I was also forewarned by some SLR employees who are very familiar with the area, and I included a graphic, Mr. Smith, in our comments, that showed when you are traveling east on US Route 1, if you are at the intersection with the northbound I-95 ramp, there's a left turn lane, 2 through lanes, and a right lane. If you're in the through lane, at that traffic light that's closest to the left turn lane, as you proceed straight to the southbound I-95 Route 1 intersection, you're going to end up in the left turn lane. Yeah, you can see we circled. Thank you very much. As you can see, we circled it here. So you can see it illustrated clearly that if you're in that through lane that's closest to the left turn lane at the northbound ramp, as you go straight, you will end up in that left turn lane. I believe that, Connecticut DOT is aware of this. It is their road. My concern with the project is we're adding additional traffic. There will be some people that will be new to the area that will be moving in, and that somehow by striping, by signage, or by alignment change, something needs to be done so you don't end up in that left turn lane. I drove it a couple of times, purposely got into that lane, and sometimes as I was trying to get out of the left turn lane, cars were blocking me, and I had to slow down to kind of go behind them. So it creates kind of a very awkward movement. So I encourage the applicant to have a discussion with, consider what changes they might propose, and maybe have a discussion with Connecticut DOT, and then follow up with the town about how this may be improved. It is an existing problem right now, but I'm also concerned with the development what might happen here in the future. And that's a potential, issue with people merging and not wanting to be in the left lane. It can cause the potential for accidents. I see that the applicant has taken in their presentation tonight. One of the comments they had was really a more thorough discussion on internal pedestrian, bike, and vehicular circulation on site. I see they have a graphic that highlighted that. I think that's a good start. Town has to review that. I'll review that with the town as well. And how people get to Walgreens. I think they made some improvements in connections, to show that as well. But I think that should be part of the traffic study, the discussion, the graphic. And if anything else, they need to fine tune that, they think, to address the comments. I don't think it should be silent on that type of issue. The other thing is kind of tied to that is you're going to have a residential building. It is likely you're going to have kids. They may want to bike to Starbucks. They may want to bike to Walgreens. They may want to walk. They may get friends from outside the community that are going to come to visit them, and they're going to want to hang out there. It's kind of a natural thing. Just to make certain that you show how that will be accommodated. The bike racks, as mentioned earlier, Mr. Smith. Just to make certain that the circulation is safe, especially considering that people are going to want to walk or go to these other sites. And that's part of what a mixed-use project is. The other thing is the crash data. I noticed that the crash data did not include the year 2023. I would question to the applicant. They don't have to address it tonight, but I was hoping that there was more recent crash data available. They could update the traffic study to include the year 2023 or whatever is available, for the year 2023. I think they showed this in the graphic. Again, I wanted to see the location of the nearest bus stop, also where the school bus would service children, and to see the connections from the external pedestrian network to the internal pedestrian network, and where these bus stops would be located, and the circulation patterns that residents would take to get to and from. And I think, again, they've already started to address some of these comments. One of the issues I think is important to mention is I reviewed the town engineer's traffic comments. One of the projects that was mentioned was 383 Main Street. And I think the applicant's response, and if I'm couching incorrectly, pardon me, but they can correct that, is that it was included in the existing counts that were done. The town engineer said that at the time of existing counts, 383 was not at full occupancy. I don't know what occupancy it was at. So I think if it was not a full occupancy, it would be prudent to have it be analyzed, a traffic study with 383 at full occupancy, add those additional trips to the no build, and then rerun your build to see if that additional traffic changes any of the conclusions of the traffic study. I would say especially, with a sensitivity analysis at the locations where you have a level of service D, which is still generally considered acceptable during peak hour conditions. If the additional traffic from 383, I'm not saying this is the case, but it could make one of those Ds drop to an E or lower, and that could certainly be considered an impact. So I think the traffic from 383 needs to be looked at more closely. The other thing is, I don't know if they conducted automatic traffic recorder counts. One, to establish exactly the peak hours. The peak hours of the project, I don't remember seeing them mentioned. I see peak periods, but I don't see peak hours. And also the ATR would be helpful if it was a speed ATR to help verify the sight distance calculations and the design speed of 45 miles per hour to make certain that they are meeting the sight distance requirements. The other comment I have is, given the fact that I think was mentioned during the presentation that this is a 2-year construction project. Again, if I'm misquoting anybody, they could correct that. Given the fact we're already in March and the review of this project could continue for longer, is 2025 still considered a realistic build year? If so, fine. If not, that would change the traffic study build year, and that would also change how the presentation of the traffic statistics that have been presented in the report. Is this something for the board, to consider? Construction traffic should be part of the study. It should describe qualitatively the phasing of the construction, where the construction entrance is going to be. Will there be parking on site enough for all the construction workers? What kind of trucks will be coming in and out? Will there be of course, construction pads put down to keep dust suppression down as they come in and off the site? So I think the traffic study needs to get into the discussion of construction. And of course, they need to present any communication they had with Connecticut DOT about the approval of balanced network, and any other further correspondence they have with Connecticut DOT to keep the town in the loop, and to make that part of the traffic submission, at least in the appendix, and they could refer to it in the traffic study. So again, just to summarize, I think queuing needs to be looked at more carefully. I think the 383 needs to be looked at more carefully, what the occupancy rate was during the analysis, a more thorough discussion on pedestrians, circulation, bike circulation, how kids would get from, around the site. Parking can be looked at in terms of shared parking analysis. I also mentioned the discussion of ADA, the number of parking spaces, and that everything will be ADA compliant. That's a very important part of it. Talk about construction traffic, site distance, if there's speed study has to be done, and the awkward geometry between north and southbound intersections along Route 1. So those are some of the highlights of our comments. And I appreciate your time listening to my summary of our comments.
Trucking Industry, thank you, Mr. Russo. At this point, we haven't heard questions, comments from commission members, and I see there's a lot of people participating. We haven't opened up to the public yet. So my expectation is this hearing may go on for a little bit longer, in which case—
Mr. Chairman, can I interject for 1 second while we have Mr. Russo here? And if you want us to do this offline, I'm happy to do that. But he had a comment at the bottom of comment number 16 below the photograph that frankly we didn't understand, and we want to be responsive. It says, in addition, there's an alignment issue on Route 1 from the Walgreens site driveway intersection to the east on eastbound direction lanes. This issue needs to be discussed. We don't know, we're not really sure what he means by that. And so long as he's here, if he can briefly summarize what his thought was, that would be helpful to us.
Sure, I have no problem. What I'm really referring to is the graphic. As you pass through Walgreens, as you come into the intersection with the northbound lane, it's the issue that I described. So it's one of the same issues I described earlier.
Okay, I mean, because clearly this is a DOT issue, an OSTA issue.
Okay. I did mention that it is an existing problem with or without your project, and this is something that can be discussed.
We're not building a regional shopping mall. This is a very modest traffic generating collection of uses. And to be clear, what we did is we included the SLR traffic report for 383. So when we come back, we will do a comparison of the SLR traffic report for 383 and what we've been asked to respond to. And we will respond to everything, even though what we've been asked to do goes far beyond what SLR did themselves for the project next door. So I'll turn back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Muff, checking in as chair. What I'd like to do, because I anticipate this hearing going on probably at least another hour, is to take a 10-minute break. So I'm going to, let's take a recess. I have 9:25, so let's pick this back up at 9:35. Thank you.
Go right into public comment.
Okay, I think I see the recording is back on. Chuck Anders' chair, is that correct? Evan and Harry?
Yes.
Okay, we're back. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to open up for questions, comments from commission members. So let's just make the rounds. Joe Chadwick. I was calling you first, Joe. So like it or not, do you have any comments or thoughts or questions you'd have at this point?
Oh, yeah, I was just trying to dig up the plan for all of this. It's a very tough site to put residential on and have the residential look residential or have a residential quality for the people who live there. I understand the economics of building buildings like this, and I could understand why certain things were done. But I am struck by a bunch of little boxes in a parking lot with a long bar building in a parking lot. And people get to live in the long bar building with this hellishly long corridor and not a heck of a lot for either views or experiential relief outside of their apartment. And it doesn't strike me as being like a really good place to live. It's an expedient place to live. If you need a place to sleep and a way to get on the highway quickly, this is going to be perfect. But as far as a place to live, I really think some thought needs to go back into this because I am just not sensing the sort of residential value of it. The building forms, the arrangement of the forms are indistinguishable from any commercial site in North Haven, off of exit 9. And that is my troubled, perception of this. And that's what I've got to say for now. It's just a lot of first impressions of very well rendered, very nicely drawn things that when you start to get into the sort of the weeds of actually living there, I just don't get the satisfaction out of it that I think I should.
Chuck Anders chair. Thank you, Joe. Fred Russo, you have any questions or comments? Fred, you are muted.
Okay, we're good now. Yeah, I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. One is that I think that the property that's there as it stands is a commercial piece of property with the Walgreens on one corner there and the empty and abandoned theater. And as much as we all might like to see something different being built there or developed there, that hasn't been the case. Here we have in front of us an applicant who's willing to take a piece of property that's abandoned. It's a lot worse abandoned than it was occupied, I think, and is willing to do something with it. And has made, I think, to this point, an honest attempt to do exactly that. Now, it's not perfect. We're not going to be able to align roads that are owned by the state or reroute entrances and exits. I mean, they're all maybe legitimate complaints that could be brought against this application, but they're not valid. They just are not. And to worry about where someone would live, I take an opposite view of Joe. To worry about where someone wants to live, that's not our purview. If that developer wants to put up apartments and he can't rent them, shame on him. But as long as he meets the zoning regulations, he fulfills the regulations that are set up before him, and I think makes the property in the end better than what it is now. Now it's a massive parking lot. That's all it really is, with a shell that's unoccupied. And to think that It shouldn't be residential. I'm like Joe, by the way. I live in a single family house. I wouldn't live there. But of course, I'm 79 years old. I'm not 35 years old or 25 years old. That's who lives in those apartments. So the dynamics of who's going to go there, it's probably nobody that's on this commission. Okay, it's a whole complete different group of people that occupy those. Now, I am active in a church in New Haven. I go there every week, go to mass, and around our building or in our church, there were nothing but empty lots. I mean, empty lots for the last 50 years. And when I drive into New Haven, come off the expressway to get to the Church of St. Anthony, I can't believe how many apartments, not even around our church. Our church was the only structure in that part on Washington Avenue, and the tallest. We were called the Beacon on the Hill. It's now the lowest building on the street. You can't see the church because it's surrounded literally on all four sides with apartments. And I question who would live there. And I say to myself, what do I care? It's not my business who lives there. If the builder spent millions and millions of dollars to put up a building, this I do know. I see lights, I see patio chairs, I see these buildings are occupied. I look at the building that we're discussing, I see it's vacant. And if we had people fighting for that property, I want to put up a commercial building, we don't have that. We have as a bona fide developer who wants to come here and do something with the property. As I said earlier, it's not perfect with what's being proposed. It's never going to be. But from what at least I see now, unless something dramatically changes, it's much, much better what's being proposed than what's there right now. And what's been there, even when it was a theater, okay? With a theater, it looked worse because of when it was occupied, those parking lots were jammed with cars. Okay? So I don't have a problem with there being mixed use. I don't have a problem with there being residential there. If you want to live in a unit that faces an entrance to or exit of a highway, that's on you. But I don't know what property is perfect in that respect. If you lived in any of the units that are on Main Street in the center of town, you'll face the street. You'll face backyards and parking. There are no perfect place to live. If you want a perfect place to live, you need to buy 6 or 7 acres and get in the woods or something. But these apartments are not appealing. What I perceive and believe is to people who traditionally are looking to buy a home or live in a single family home. I think these are a very mobile group of people that come into a town. They may work there for a year or two, and then they up and they leave. And that's what's out there today. So I think we have to be careful not to apply our traditions to another group of people who are much younger with a whole different view of how things work and how it works for them. And where, I speak for myself. I got out of college, I want to get married, I want a family, I want to have a house. That I don't think is the case. There are people still doing that, of course, but the majority of people, that's the younger people today, that's not their path to their future, at least not at this time. So I'm interested to hear more about this project. I would not say it gives me a bad vibe. It doesn't give me a bad vibe at all. Looking at that building that's there now gives me a bad vibe. Looking at all that blacktop that's there gives me a bad vibe. But I'm still interested to hear even more than what's been proposed. I think what the Attorney Neff has done is made a legitimate proposal about what they want to do with the property. I think we should really take it very, very seriously. So I will, hold back and say whether it's a yes or no. That's not what this discussion is about. But I think that from what I see, it sounds like a better proposal than what's there right now, or else better than anything else that's been put on the table, which has been practically nothing. So that's my point of view on that.
Chuck Candace, Chair. Thank you, Fred. Marcy, any thoughts or comments at this time?
Yeah, just a second. Let me put my video on for you. There you go. Oh, my hair's a mess. I've been considering this quite a bit against the project just right on the other side of the exit. And, I was happy to see that, the heights are similar, that the parking ratios of 1.5 cars or similar. When I look at the new MetroStar project, they've got one long building facade that's right along parallel to the highway. And, this one is along the 55 ramp. And in some cases, it's less intensive of a view than that was. I've had renters come look at apartments for rentals that have also looked at MetroStar, and they don't have kids. So I was a little surprised by the concern about kids and biking through parking lots and those things, because I think, 1 or 2 bedroom apartments at that price point, you're getting a professional, you're getting a lot of people that are going there to use the elevators. I've seen, tenants that haven't taken things I've listed because they're on the second floor and there's just not enough at grade housing for people where they can get in and out, with an aging market. So I've seen that a lot where people are, and even people are leaving units that I'm familiar with to go to units in East Haven that have elevators because they need that type of access. And, so I see both ends of the spectrum, sort of the professional and the active adult kind of scenario who are downsizing and whatnot. I'm not seeing the kids, there, but I could be wrong. I'd be very curious to get more data on that. As far as the dog park, I take my dog to the park a lot now, and I take him to Young's Pond because there's so much space. So, to me, the fact that that was pushed over to the side as sort of an afterthought, I'd rather see that contiguous, maybe overlap the fire lane or something, where there's more space for the pets in the building. People who go to the dog parks are very social with one another, and, or there is a overlap between, if there were kids in the building outside throwing a ball with, a Young's Pond, for example, with dog owners. So I might rethink that a little bit. I was very pleased to see that they articulated the theater building to take advantage of the entrance. I felt that that was always very poorly placed with and awkward with the theater, the way the theater functioned. I was very pleased to see that that building's being used with very minimal impact to the parking area. It's, everything is behind the building. It's associated with more the Walgreens side of the property, which I think really helps the residential feel. I really appreciated Harry's comments about bringing the lighting down. I thought that that was very good. I was curious about the existing entrance to the theater, what that facade looks like, because that's really opposite the residential area. And, some of the surfacing on the medical building I thought might be similar to the back sides of the theater building, but I wasn't sure. So I was just trying to bridge together how it might all look from that standpoint. I did feel that the hold on, excuse me. I did feel that the one angle closest to the building that's pinching quite a little bit, and I'd be curious what that would look like in terms of an elevation to see, whether that's going to feel crowded or not. But I think generally, you've got the parking for the heights. You've got, I don't mind a flat roof structure. I don't think we need to be so hung up on making everything look like a New England pitched roof architecture. I think the architecture is very well thought out and does reflect our heritage of our mill community. And, I do think that there's that intersection as a node with our plan of development is taking on much more of a residential character. And I think the uses that they're proposed are, non-intensive big box uses or non-intensive things that are going to over commercialize the area with, it's smaller restaurant pads, it's medical, it's, I don't really know what people think about storage pro or con, but, I wouldn't want to see the storage building go to a cube storage and have that kind of branding going on. But I did like the architecture that was proposed, and I hope that they would keep that would be part of the regulation, that architecture had to be in place for any future tenants that came to either occupy the pad site or had to occupy, if we lost the Starbucks or what have you, because I do think that is important. But generally, I think that they're off to a good start. And, obviously there's more detail that we need to hear. I'd like to see the planting plans done at a larger scale so I can really look at the detail. I mean, when you're looking at 100 scale plans, as Harry said, the plants look really crowded, but I can't really examine the planting when it's at that scale. I mean, I'd like to see close-ups, at a 40 or 50 scale of each building location so that I could consider, what they're proposing and so forth. And again, not that they have to go in and survey every tree off of the wetlands areas, but has any survey been done in those more conservation areas that have been protected over time to know what's going on as far as large trees, about what's feeding the wetland in or out as far as water flow. I'd just be curious about that because a lot of the, sensitive areas are created from drainage off of 95. So I'd like to sort of understand the bigger system, if that's going to be the part of the project that's going to be the open space that's, granted for this subdivision as Harry was going through. So that's about it. Hopefully that helps.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Marcy. Massimo, any thoughts or comments like to make?
Yeah, sure. I'm involved with the community pretty much, in the town of Branford. And when we first approved the Metro Star apartments there was some rebellion from certain people that live in the town, and they're like, wow, you guys really approved a lot of apartments. It's going to be really congested. And they did a really nice job with the building there. And after they were done with that, the comments changed, and they were much more positive. And what an improvement to that site, which I felt of relief because we approved that project. I think this team that this applicant has here, it seems like the improvement on that site is significant. It's a real nice improvement. I like the way they combined the commercial with the residential. Look, I'm a little skeptical on the traffic studies. I live in town. We travel these roads often. I live off of Mill Plain Road. The traffic, particularly in the summer, gets pretty brutal. I felt much better when I found out that the traffic study, said that there'd be less cars, less traffic with this project versus the cinema that was existing. That made me feel a little bit better. But I am a little skeptical on the whole studies itself because, from very good to good and it staying in that category, boggles my mind sometimes. It's a definite improvement to the site. To be honest with you, I kind of like it. If the right tweaks are made, and if people want to live there, that's on them. I remember, another project that we approved that the apartments were very small. Hey, look, if you want to live in a small apartment, 450 square feet apartment, that's fine. I don't have to live there if I don't want to, and if they can't rent it, that's on them. I think, the biggest concern for me is our future on approving these types of projects with these big apartment buildings. Okay, I do like this project. I would like to see this improved. They're doing a great job at it. For future other applicants that want to put big apartment buildings in, look, the housing industry goes up and down. When it goes down, a lot of people who rent start buying properties. Those apartments become empty. They're hard to rent. They lower the price, or they're held empty. That's the way the statistics are. With real estate, That's my concern in the future for the town of Branford, with big apartment buildings. But overall, at the moment, in the state that we are right now, we do need housing. So, you know, um, I like that they're taking some blacktop out. I really like the dog park. I really like that, by the way, because there's a lot of people who want pets that live in apartments that can't have them. So there's a lot of positives and a couple of negatives. I think if this team comes back and tweaks things out, even better than what they did this time on such a short notice, I really commend them for that. Um, you know, I think we might have something positive there. That's my comment.
Chuck Candace, Chair. Thank you, Massimo. Sharon, any thoughts or comments?
Yes, I do have some. I definitely think that it's an improvement to what the site looks like now. And I would like to commend the applicant for listening to some of the recommendations that the commissioners made in terms of increasing the amount of affordable housing, which we definitely need in Branford, and about decreasing the size of the building, which was also an improvement, and about adding more landscaping, and about decreasing the amount of impervious surfaces, which I think are all improvements to the site. However, I think that the community could benefit from a better use than a storage facility in the cinema building. There's lots of other uses that can be put into that building that I think the community could benefit from. That's a single story built, one level building, and I'm not a builder or developer, but it seems to me it might be advantageous to put in senior housing, which we also need in town, or an assisted living facility, which would help our population as well. I think that if there are going to be apartments there with 2 bedrooms, that there will be children. And so I think there could be a possibility to put a daycare center in the old cinema building, which is definitely a need all over the state, let alone in our town. And maybe expand that to an indoor entertainment facility for children and families and for people from other towns to come to as well. A private college might want to renovate that building as a campus. And so I think that might need to be revisited. And I have a question, I don't know if that can get answered tonight, but in terms of tax revenue for the town, which would be more advantageous? Would the storage facility bring in more tax revenue to the town, or would one of those other purposes that I talked about, would that bring more tax revenue into the town? So that's just a question I'd like to throw out there. And the other thing is, I agree with Harry about the density. I would love to see it less dense and more open space. And I think it would be more residentially appealing if it did have the New England colonial peaked roof architecture that, we see in other parts of our town. I live in Turtle Bay and we have 186 units, and it is of that architecture, and it's really beautiful. The other comment that I'd like to make is, we have a state goal to reduce our greenhouse gases by 45% by the year 2030. And I did not see any mention about any renewables. Nothing about electric vehicle charging stations, nothing about the possibility of putting solar panels on the roofs, and nothing about using heat pumps as a source of energy instead of using fossil fueled energy mechanisms. So I think that is the end of my comments. So thank you very much.
Chuck, can you just share? Thank you, Sharon. I have a few comments. The first on the residential component, I'm largely in agreement with the thought that that is market driven, that any project is market driven. There is, I guess, a need for residential development for apartments. My theme has always been that if we're going to build, multifamily, that we should have an affordable component, and we should put it as much, increase the affordable component as much as we can. Certainly, there are areas of town where there's even been suggestions of, oh, let's put in a higher density type of stuff. There's a lot of pushback, a lot of negative pushback. I think in terms of locations to put an affordable housing, I think this is good. I mean, it should be an area. So I commend the developer for increasing the affordable component from 10% to 20%. There's lots of state mandates, pressures, all sorts of ways. In order, I think it increases our track record to show that we are making progress of getting deed restricted units. And there's a legitimate need. There are people actually that are served by this, and that in our town and everywhere, housing has just gone up. So that's good. So that's the plus on the residential side. I did have a question about the self-storage component of this. Certainly, we like the adaptive reuse, and but I guess the issue is there is our existing regulations at 712. We have a certain set of standards for self-storage. My assumption was that if you're going to have self-storage here, it would likely comply with those regulations. There are some separation distances in there, and I thought I raised that or mentioned it when we had our informal meeting. Do you comply with the separation distances? And I thought the answer was yes, but I saw an email that suggested maybe they don't. The 5,000 minimum separation distance from another self-storage facility. I don't know if you comply with that because that raises the question. Hey, wait a minute. We have a set of standards. Why should you get out of it? I understand analytically you could because it's your own zone, its own part of a PDD. But is that a fair question? So I think that's a legit question. The third comment was about just probably we see it. I think it was just a restaurant before, and now it's a Starbucks. And when I see Starbucks, I think of long lines. I think of the one at the quote pretzel line, the long lines. And I know we had a question come up about stacking at drive-throughs, and just looking at the traffic, the AM traffic peak, that all the traffic is from the Starbucks. It looks like. So just making sure that you got to go in, you got to make a left, and you got to, there's going to be a wait, and making sure that is smoothly done. Because I can just see that being that's where a lot of traffic seem to be. There's going to be a lot of activity there. So just make sure it's done right. And then finally, I'm interested to hear what the public has to say. This is a public hearing. Looks like there's a lot of people here. So we'll get a chance to hear some public comment as well. So with that, and people have been waiting around, it's after 10 o'clock. So we should, I think, start the public portion and give the public a chance to comment. So Evan, can you once again review the process for the public that can comment? By the way, in case anyone's not clear, we're not going to close this hearing tonight. We are going to continue this public hearing. So just so anyone knows, if you don't, this is, if you don't get a chance to speak, you will at a continued public hearing. So Evan, can you just run through again the process for the public to participate?
Sure. At the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button. Please select this if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment. You can also type it in the chat that you'd like to make a comment. I think we have 3 people already. I'll try to take everybody in the order that they raise their hands, and we just ask that everyone please state their name at the beginning of their comment or question. So first up, we have Nick.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nicholas Cairo Devlin. I reside at 2 Oak Hollow Road in Branford, Connecticut. Here are some of my concerns. So I think overall, when dealing with planning and zoning regulations, there are a couple issues where it can set a negative precedent. And we want to make sure that our commission upholds the regulations that are set within the bylaws. So the current location is owned by a grocery retailer. And to my understanding, future exceptions are placed on this property for development to exclude other grocery retailers. So the self-storage market, and I'll get to this point later, is deserving of that same respect to adhere to the existing regulations to support the continued success of our small businesses here in town. So currently, the existing lot prior to the proposed subdivision is non-conforming. It does not meet the 5,000-foot minimum separation requirements for repurposing the Regal Cinemas into the self-storage facility. Currently, this calculation was done on the Branford GIS with a linear measurement, which indicated 4,899 feet. That's boundary line to boundary line. I met with the owner of the Branford storage that was within that 5,000-foot minimum separation, and he had his own hardships with finding land, having to go through wetland requirements, and just a really extensive approval process. So we don't want to set the precedent here that can have detrimental impacts on other small business owners in the self-storage market. And I go on to say that we need to make sure that all of the existing business owners have their fair share of challenges, and those need to be recognized. There are 8 other storage facilities in Branford, and they all occupy around a 20% vacancy. So adding another conglomerate, which also is proposed to be the largest storage facility in Branford, would really saturate the market and could have negative implications on small business owners. There was a point to the tax contributions for this project, and while it might seem positive, it doesn't recognize the fact that if small businesses have a reduction in their occupancies, their tax rates will be reduced. So that is a full broad scope that needs to be recognized. And actually, it needs to recognize whether or not these needs meet the actual needs of the community or if it's the interest of this conglomerate coming in. In October, they pulled from the ZBA meeting, but my question is that it was also reported today that they did have the minimum separation requirement, but if they didn't, where was the variance application when they were at the existing ZBA meetings? So that leads to just this broad speculation of whether or not they're being transparent in the process, and deliberately withholding information doesn't look good. And lastly, the deeded language excludes grocery retailers from occupying that space. So anybody who wants to vet for a proposed project is now limited. So with that narrow scope, they're not also recognizing the negative implications that that same idea would have to the self-storage market. So I just want them to be really mindful of that, because it really just focuses like on their self-interests, and it's not the interests of the town. So they really need to be a little bit more empathetic in regards to that. And then I think that there can be innovative ways, as one of the commissioners stated, to really make this and repurpose that space. I echo her sentiments. I thought it was really, really well thought out. And I just wanted to share my concerns about this project moving forward. I think that there needs to be a lot more thought and attention to detail how this is going to benefit Branford and the communities around us. Thank you.
Thank you. Evan, who's next?
Ken and Deborah Suden.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Debbie Sudan. This is my husband, Ken Sudan. We're co-owners of the Lockup Self-Storage in Branford at 247 North Main Street.
And operators.
And operators. Nick went through some of our concerns. So I'm going to start with some positive things that I wanted to say first. One was I really like the mill building exterior that they showed on their renderings. It's very good. And also the picture of their self-storage unit looks exactly like our building. So I think that's a compliment to us. And I thought that was great. I understand there's no storage commitment yet from any facilities. I didn't hear, has Starbucks and some medical facility committed to going into the building? The third building that they showed? I'm asking a question.
Okay, the applicant, it sounded Chuck Anders chair.
Yes.
The applicant can address that. I think Starbucks has, but they said they don't have a specific tenant for the medical building.
Okay. The other thing is, there are currently up to 8 self-storage facilities in town right now in Branford, as it was just stated. And when we bought the property back in 2007 and did our building, we opened in January of 2009. We jumped through a lot of hoops with all kinds of commissions, planning, zoning, Board of Appeals, wetlands. We had to adhere to the existing regulations. And that was where I think Nick has already touched on it, but this minimum separation requirement. Historically, it's been property line or boundary line to boundary line. And I don't think that's being adhered to. So I'd like to know, this is regulation 7.12.b. What is the measurement?
Well, I understand you're going to ask these questions. We'll ask the applicant can address that. So
Okay.
you had all your questions and comments
Okay.
on the record. So
No, I think, first of all, I just feel that they have to adhere to the same regulations that we all had to adhere to as well. So my questions are, I don't particularly care if Starbucks or a medical facility has committed to that other building, but I do care about the separation for self-storage, the minimum separation, 5,000 feet, because there is a problem there. If you go to the map and you do it linearly, they don't meet that requirement. And I want to make sure that someone's watching out for us. We've been in town for a long time.
If I may, I just want to add, we've been in Branford for 15 years now, and I'm very happy with Branford and our relationship with the town. We, as a business, have been involved with a lot of activities in town. The festival, we discount or give units away in the past for the festival, for the Jazz Festival. We were one of the founding sponsors of the Jazz Festival. Cosgrove Animal Facility, the high school drama club. I'm just trying to show we've been a good positive for the town. And I really like the town. I don't live in town. I live up down the road a little bit, but my business is there. I'm very happy my business is there. So what I want to ask, and I'll preface this a little bit, I used to be a chair on the planning and zoning in the town I live in. So I'm kind of familiar with how these things work and the procedures and the kind of the gun you're under. And I appreciate your situation. So my question is, as a commission chairman and commissioners of the town, I always took it as my mandate to think about the town whenever a new potential property owner was coming in to make a proposal. And I would look at it to say, well, okay, is this what my town wants to happen here? Yes, I understand, hey, that the theater has been gone for many years and it's a sightly big parking lot. I drive by it every day, twice a day, because that's where I go in and out to my home. So I look at that and I think of that again, like I was saying when I was on the commission. Is this what the townspeople want? Is this the best use for this particular property? I know you have no control of saying, oh yeah, I want this, I want that, let's bring them in, different options, but there are different options. And I think it's part of your responsibility to think of a whole than just this one particular project and what it can bring to the town. And I appreciate you're taking the time and patience to hear our concerns.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Evan, who's next?
Next is Shire and Lance Lyon.
Hi, so this is Shire Lyon at 15 Stonewall Lane. And I'd like to first say that definitely it feels like an improvement from an open or a vacant movie theater. But my concern is mostly with the traffic impact. I feel like the studies don't really appropriately address living in town. And they certainly don't address peak in terms of people coming to visit for the summer. Already on most days, traffic can back up from approximately Mill Plain to the Panera in Guilford, and I can almost never leave from Featherbed on any peak traffic time, whether it be on the weekend or during the week. And there's some serious concerns about people driving on the wrong side of the road to avoid people turning. So I'd like to see those things addressed.
Check and just share. Thank you very much. Evan, do you see anyone else? Is there anyone else at this time would like to speak?
Just to reiterate, the reactions button or the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. It looks like Nick would like to speak again.
Is anyone else, before Nick's spoken once, anyone else want to say anything before Nick speaks again? I mean, just like to give one a chance to go first, but I don't see anyone. So Nick, what else you got?
Hi, Nicholas Cairo Devlin. I'm so sorry. The other thing is that the MetroStar apartments, they have 188 units. So I know that they, with this proposal, were upwards of 350 units within a really concentrated area. Again, it's that same argument where we don't want to overwhelm a market because then it's going to lead to vacancies. And we want to make sure that we're maximizing the use of the space. So that's just what I needed to comment. And then again, if other people are able to come to the table, other businesses, I want everybody to just reiterate the fact that there are deeded exclusions for other grocery retailers. So it is narrowing the scope of what is able to go there. And we want to also make sure that this process is very inclusive and accessible. And so if there are exclusions, it just, again, it's not fully encompassing the full potential it has to be inclusive and accessible to meet the needs of the community. Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time today.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public that wish to comment? Evan, do you see anyone?
I do not see anyone else.
Okay. We are going to continue the public hearing. This understand. Mr. Nuff, do you have any reactions you'd like to make at this time, or you want to wait a bit to the continued hearing?
I'm just going through my notes, frankly, Mr. Chairman, see if I can cherry pick anything that you would find helpful. If you want to give me a minute, I probably not. I understand that, there's by the way, we've done our own study about the 5,000 feet. We comply, and we'll be happy to submit an exhibit with regard to that. Let's see if there's anything else that we want to talk about. By the way, the self-storage as a use. If we did anything else with that building, that would take up all the parking. Then you'd be left with just that building with a lot of parking. So, I mean, there is a method to and thought that went into making that a self-storage building. It has no windows. So it'd be difficult, if not impossible, to turn it into anything else that would require windows, frankly, whether it's other apartments or senior housing or anything like that. So it has. We've heard concerns about traffic. We heard concerns about parking. That's the beauty of self-storage. You can repurpose and adaptively reuse that building in a way that creates no traffic and has very minimal parking. So, there are true advantages to turning that building into self-storage. So, I mean, that's sort of a very big picture response, and we'll get into all the details further. If there's anything else that the commission would like me to respond to this evening, I'd be happy to do that. It's getting a little bit late. My guess is, people might want to retire soon, but I'll leave it up to the commission. If there's anything they want me to address specifically, I'd be happy to do that.
Chuck Insha, thank you, Mr. Nuff. I look forward to that. That was one of my concerns, that there is an existing section in 7.112, one of which one that stick out is the separation distance from other self-storage units, but there's some other things in there too. And I thought, that, and I understand your position is, well, we do comply, and you're going to send us something that shows how you can comply.
Yeah.
And that would be helpful, because I thought, at least on its face, that seems to be so we'll look and see if we agree or disagree or whatever, but that'd be great to address that.
Okay.
Harry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to pick up on something Marcy Paluzzi mentioned about the facade of the self-storage building, to be a self-storage building, facing the residential building. And I can pull that up, then I'll let the applicant talk about it, but I did want to show that and make a comment and a question, just since it was brought up, and it seems to be part of the discussion in terms of how that fits in with the whole site and a residential use across the parking lot from it. So I'll just share my screen for a quick second. Hopefully it won't take up too much time here, but in looking at this, hopefully everyone can see this. My understanding, this is the facade of the entrance to the cinema, which would face the residential building. And I'm sure everyone's seen along 91, there is at least one storage building, and I think there's a couple of these around the area that have basically cutouts in the facade. So you're seeing into the doors of the units, all of these really intensively lit. So it's almost in effect, kind of I think it was a comment about branding, trying to, I think the comment, if I heard it from one of the commissioners, was the effect of trying to keep the design of the building down so there wasn't being branded as sort of a giant billboard, if you will. These kind of cutouts, and I'm not sure this would be lit from the inside, but I would imagine it would be, have been, in my experience, pretty intensively lit and pretty, let's say, non-residential in character. So there is this one in the existing facade of the cinema entrance currently, or that building that's been used. And then the smaller cutouts, I think, on all three sides of the office portion. So that, I think this faces, I believe, the residential side, or I'm not sure. Maybe this is the part that faces Route 1. Maybe the applicant explain that, or one of the architects explain that a little more clearly. But that, frankly, is a real concern of mine. I noted in my report, but I did not highlight in my comments. And I think Commissioner Paluzzi was questioning what that would look like from the residential building perspective. So I'll stop there.
Great. Chuck Insha. Thank you, Gary. Do any other commission members or staff have any comments we'd like to make to the applicant before we continue this matter to another meeting? Okay, I don't see anyone. Then the next question is, when do we want to continue this to? Do we want to make it in 2 weeks, or do you want to make it a month? The first or second meeting. What do you think?
As I said, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to give up the opportunity to come back to you in 2 weeks. I think we can keep the pedal to the floor, and I understand we're going to be submitting a lot of information back to Harry that he will have to pour through, and then, offer his comments again to all of you. Listen, maybe there's a possibility, but the worst case scenario is let's plan on being back before you in 2 weeks. And if we don't feel we're ready, or if we feel that it would be, wasting the commission's time to do this iteratively, we can make that decision a day or two before the meeting, and we'll just say we'll just continue hearing. I'll be here in 2 weeks. We'll say we're going to continue until your next meeting, and then that will be that. But I don't want to just automatically assume that we can't make that.
Okay, that's fine. Harry, is that sound okay?
No, that sounds reasonable. I understand it's sort of in flux and in process, so that makes sense.
Okay.
And by the way, in terms of Harry's last comment, we can dim those lights inside. So there's lots of things we can do. So, but we should.
I think really consider eliminating at least the one on the cinema facade. This the entrance facade. But that would be my personal comment. We'll see what the commissioners take is. But thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay
everyone.
then. Okay, so then we will continue these matters, and again, there's 4 of them, I guess, right? Items 3 through 6 to our. We'll continue this public hearing to our April 4th meeting. That's our next meeting. Thursday, April 4th. It's also a Zoom meeting, starts at 7. So with that's what we'll do. So thank you very much. And so this matter is continued to our April 4th meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yeah. Then continuing on, I don't think we have any matters to vote on. I think all the first 2 items were continued. So we have our minutes. That's next on the agenda. We have the minutes from. I think we didn't approve the February 15th minutes last time. We wanted to revise those, but I don't think those were sent out, so we never got them. But we did get the right.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. No, the revisions have not been made yet, just due to the press of time. A couple of members of staff, including myself, have been out on FMLA leave in and out of the office, so that's been part of the problem too. So we'll get to that. Okay,
but we did get the March 7th minutes, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at those, and if someone wants to make a motion with respect to the adoption of the March 7th minutes.
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Fred makes a motion to approve the March 7th minutes. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick, are you in favor?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Russo's in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Okay, I don't know who's up, Massimo or Sharon.
I think I'm up.
Okay, we'll give it to Sharon. Sharon, you in favor?
In favor.
And Chair is also in favor. So the minutes are adopted. Correspondence? Any correspondence, Harry?
We do have correspondence from State of Connecticut Siting Council and an applicant as well for modifications to cell tower at 21 Acorn Road. I think the state correspondence respect to this being proposed to be modified as a where's the wording here? Request for exempt modification. So I think they're proposing to do this basically in-house without hearings or the more extensive procedure they can follow if someone requests that. So I think it's basically swapping out equipment. So they're not increasing the tower, not increasing the site of the boundary. They're not increasing noise levels, replacement antennas, etc. So that's it.
Okay, that's it for correspondence then.
Yep.
Then we have old business. The first 2 items are 3537, and we haven't scheduled the public hearing for that one. I think that's still being looked at by the Town Center Review with that one. So we're not ready for those, and we will schedule a public hearing using the. Harry will consult with me and we'll just schedule it when that's ready. And then item Number 3 is for Lisa Lane. That's scheduled for a public hearing at our next meeting on April 4th. So new business, I didn't see anything under new business. And then we have other business. We have planners report. Do you have a report for us?
Given the lateness of the hour, I have nothing I really need to mention. I will note that we were preempted, if you will, on BCTV Live by the Board of Finance meeting. But as you know, may have seen in the BCTV icon is here. They're taping the meeting and will be playing it on the repetitive loop they do around all kinds of hours of the day. So that's it. Unless Evan, you've got anything to add?
Nope.
Okay.
Great. Anyone else have anything? Not then, someone will make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Sharon to adjourn. Is there a second?
Fred Russo will second that.
Second by Fred. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick in favor.
Fred Russo?
Russo's in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
And Sharon?
Sharon is in favor.
And Chair's also in favor. So, okay. Well, good night, everyone.
Thank you all. Good night.
Okay.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.